I've tried it. For me, I think it's really important whenever something new comes out, I want to see if I like it first before I recommend it to clients. I think social is in a really cool space because as we get into things like AI, artificial intelligence, there's going to be a big push for how is social going to change, and Paul's talked about bots. Whereas for me, the most important thing is that social media is called social media for a reason, and it's all about connecting people and building communities and building that affinity and affection, whether you're a brand, a consumer, or just a person who's just trying to find somebody that you can relate to online.
Outstanding. So an incredible panel here this morning. And in fact, did I remember correctly? Oh, I apologize if I got this wrong. You were in the UK for 11 years?
Yeah, I lived in Scotland for 11 years. And while I was there, I had my own business. I worked at Scotland's #1 agency, Equator, who are really cool. If you just like checking out other agencies, they do really cool stuff. And I worked for the Scottish government as well.
Outstanding. I did a couple of sabbaticals in Scotland, so I happen to remember that. And I use social media. I do a lot of international business work, and social media has become my virtual journal. As I now find more and more people following me on social media because they want to figure out where I am in the world, number one, but secondly, to learn more about the journeys and the classes and so forth. So it's taken on not only a domestic component, but obviously an international component. Obviously the internet. Social media has no geographic boundaries, it is virtual. About, 20 years ago now, I had the great good fortune of having the then CEO of Boeing, Harry Stonecipher, come speak to one of my classes. I'd known him for a while. I have a lot of good friends, engineers at Boeing. And Mr. Stonecipher was on the P&G board and was in town. I prevailed upon him to come up with the class. Actually, I sick my students on him. This is how I get all my guest speakers. I make my students go beg for the guest speaker, and they can't resist the students. And Mr. Stonecipher came up, and of course I had to promise his admin that I would get him out of there on a timely fashion. I said, "What, he's got to claim the cash? What? He doesn't have his own." He came up, and this is, of course, at the dawn, the advent of social media. And he said, someday, in the not too distant future, we'd be wirelessly communicating with anyone, anywhere, on any plane, at any time. Now you have to remember, this is before Wi-Fi was a thing on a plane. It was just beginning to crop up. He said the technology actually exists. Of course, that technology was not really usable. The antenna array you'd have to drag behind the plane would be longer than 3 football fields. But they were on it. They were the technologists, if you will, were on it. And soon, they realized they were looking in the wrong direction. They were trying to beam signals back down to Earth. No. Wrong direction. If you're on a plane today, I'm flying over the Pacific, well, actually more than North Pole, all the way down to Hong Kong. South Korea. Where are they beaming the signal? Not back down to Earth. Where are they beaming? Up to the satellites. Then back down to Earth. And so how we think of technology has morphed and changed over time. So the first question I have for our panel, by the way, real quick, so I'm going to ask the panel a 3 questions, and then I want to open it up for questions to the audience. And where we go to, midnight? 11:45? Midnight, okay, good. Excellent. So I'll be the time bridge here. You're all in for this, right? You're in for the long haul, right? And so I'm going to ask the panel a series of questions, then I'm going to open up to the floor. And I'm sure the panel's going to be open if there's something pressing, especially a point on clarification, the panel will probably be open to that as we go. So the first question out of the gate builds on this notion of the ubiquity of social media. So I'm going to ask each panelist, I'm going to start with Ryan and move back down towards Alexis. How do you use social media for you, and how do you use it for your clients?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my job is social media and social media director. So we use social in various different ways, and a lot of it depends on what our clients' business goals are. A good example, I think, is one from a freelance client that I have where they needed me to come in and do a social consult. And one of the first things I came in and said, well, what are your social KPIs, or your key performance indicators? He said, what? Pardon? And I said, like, how are you gonna measure success? Oh, I don't know. Well, what are your wider marketing goals? Oh, well, we don't have any. So I was like, okay, let's take a step back and let's sit. And the first thing I need from you is to take a look at your business. You're telling me all these things about what you're trying to do, and tell me what are your 3 key goals that you want to do. What are things that you want to do for that year? Then we'll take those goals, and those can be things that maybe some of them aren't going to work on social, but how can we ladder up what we're doing to those goals? And I think that's one of the things people think about. Social media is not going to be the be-all, end-all, but it's a great way to sometimes hit those goals, whether those goals are growing a database, whether they are hitting more sales. But also, you have to think of while you're doing all those things, your wider marketing goals, you have to remember that, like I said before, it's called social media. So you want to also keep your eye out for what I like to call affinity and affection. Because people who follow you organically on social media are doing it because they like you, or they like your product, or they want to be part of that community that your brand represents. So you want to hit those wider marketing goals, but you also don't want to alienate that fan base that you already have, and you want to continue to kind of grow that fan base that you have. For me personally, when I was a work-at-home mom. I had my son. I went freelance when I was 1, when he was 1 year old, not when I was 1. And I was pretty isolated. I was in Scotland anyway. I didn't really have any of my friends or any of my family. And Twitter was a huge, huge benefit to me. It was like my working office. Now, Twitter's kind of gone a bit of a weird way now, but at that point in time, Twitter was a really great community for me. And I was also working for a client where Facebook was a huge community for moms. It was the kind of Scottish, the English, Scottish, Irish, whatever, equivalent of the bump. Anyone knows the bump? You get the knot when you get engaged, and the nest, they boot you over after you've been married for a while, and then they kick you over to the bump if they think you haven't had a baby quite soon enough. But this community of women who probably like me were a bit isolated and didn't have anyone to ask advice or questions for when all those tiny little things happen when you have your first child. You're like, like you don't know what's normal and what's not. And I think that social media has this really great place to connect people together. So I think it can really help people, as from an agency side, it's really important to hit those business goals, hit those KPIs, but at the same time, keep in mind you don't want to really miss the opportunity to build that affinity and affection.
Outstanding. Wow, that ties together so many loose ends, especially when you mention the affinity and affection in concert with KPIs. Key success factors aren't just a strategy term anymore, it's a strategy for your social media. Rebecca, your thoughts?
So for me, it's very the same with the clients that I work with. It's all about what they're trying to achieve, whether that's telling a story or ramping up information about an event and all that kind of stuff. But personally, it was more so about building a brand for myself and getting a community that I connected with, and it really helped me find my job. I actually landed my interview through Twitter. I just kind of stalked everyone in the PR business in Cincinnati and checked on their tweets, and one day I saw someone tweet about game day, and I was like, hey, are you guys hiring? And so it escalated into this whole thing, and I did an interview, and now I'm here. So it's just been all about connecting with people.
So it has the power to do both. That again highlights, illustrates what you can do with it, whether it's a personal goal or whether it's a goal for our clients or our businesses or our constituents. It has incredible power. Nathan, obviously you've worked with a lot of brands around this, so your thoughts?
So I'm going to say a big ditto to what Ryan said. It's all about, when someone works with you business-wise, they're going to be looking for what we call a return on spend. So they're going to give you money. You've got to make sure that you lift their business in some way so that they continue to give you money. Because if they don't see a business value to what you're doing in social, they will not continue to fund it. But I will go into a little more detail on how we actually do social at Northlake a little bit. We are big on targeting and trying to figure out who is the right person. And I'll step aside here in a little bit and talk to you about some of the nitnoy stuff. But we do really advanced, cool stuff at Northlake. For example, I can target your phone down to where you live. I can watch where your phone settles at night and then figure out who you are, connect your profile, your actual address to a person, then ladder that to a credit profile, follow your credit profile to your shopper card at Kroger, and then show you an ad on Facebook and watch to see if you buy more Dr. Pepper, which is the ad I'm showing you for. That's how cool this stuff is. Now, it's a lot of money, but that's how detailed and awesome social media. I'm sorry if I freaked you out.
Everybody's shutting off their phones today tonight.
I can still follow you. So, but no, so that's the cool stuff. And that's where, like, sort of technology is colliding with social, and how do we deal with that? And so we really look at, especially on some of our clients, who's the right person to target, and how do we, and I call it add, not subtract. Social profiles and social streams are built to be for people. And so if, as a brand, if we put ourselves into a social stream, whether that's being through advertising on social or just organically, if we are disrupting their feed, we get ignored, unfollowed, hidden. And so we have to think content first. If you don't have good content, you probably shouldn't play. And then I also say that social isn't free. Most business pages, especially on Facebook, Instagram, if you're going to put the effort, time, and energy into creating content for your page, please boost it. Like, as a blogger who doesn't make anywhere near the money that the brands do that I work with, I still boost my stuff. So if you're going to spend time on social, one of the big things you should be doing is spending a little bit. And I don't spend a lot. I spend $10, but $10 goes a long way. I actually can get about 40,000 views on Facebook for $10. So just to give you an idea. But how I use it personally, I don't use social all that much. I use it so much for my blog. I look for ways, and I consider myself a content creator, not a social user. It's a little bit different. If you look back in history, the people that were successful were storytellers and artists. And so I told myself long ago that I'm going to create, not talk. And so because I can create, I can then connect. And so that's sort of my perspective, and I try to add through my blog.
Outstanding, a great example. Although I would ask at some point after we'll do offline. So you've all experienced this, right? You're on social media, and you go to Facebook, and suddenly the ads on the right side of your page reflect just what you bought or where you've been. So I'm a inveterate online shopper. I buy dress shirts online, and then for the next 3 weeks I get ads for dress shirts. I don't need a dress shirt, I just bought three.
They need us to talk to Empower or Northlake, because
Yeah.
whoever is doing that is
They
not
changed the
closing
algorithm,
the
yeah.
conversion rate.
I tweeted at Old Navy the other day because they served me a Pinterest pin, and I was like, oh my god, that is the cutest t-shirt ever. I have to get that. And I clicked on it, went through, and it was sold out.
I know, it's terrible.
And I tweeted up, and it was. I should have done this because it's somebody who I've been at some point in my life on the other end. I was like, y'all need to upgrade. I don't know who's buying your Pinterest pin, so y'all need to upgrade it because you just directed me to a page, and it wasn't just that it was sold out; it was a 404. So it wasn't. Yeah, I know. Whoa! Like, it wasn't even like they gave me the next best option. So like, I think that's one of the things. Like, you have to be so smart with your targeting, and not just smart with your targeting, but smart with your optimizations.
Right.
Because if something really does go well, especially product-based, and that does sell out, what's going to happen next? And you really have to think about that user journey from the whole experience, from the best case scenario if they get through and they buy it, but what happens if they go to buy it and it's not there?
Yeah.
Which just highlights how fast paced this is, how fast it can change. There is some staying power, but at the same time, that can be very fleeting, it can be very short-lived. And I did actually reach out to both of them. I said, I really don't want any more of these shirts. I have plenty of them. And of course, I do a lot of things in class. I have to be very careful because if I do bring up a Facebook or social media page, I have to be very cautious about what's on that right-hand side because everybody then knows what I'm buying. That's the downside of the whole thing. Alexis, your thoughts?
So with Game Day Feels, one thing that we do, and I stress to a lot of people that I consult on a small business side, is really establishing your messaging. So messaging can be through visual as well as what you're writing about that caption, or in that caption. So on Game Day Feels, we try to keep consistency. So if you think about when you go to someone's Instagram page, what are the first things that they see? And the first thing they see on your Instagram page are your top 6 images. And so one strategy or exercise that we do is we write down, or have written down, what are our top 6 messages that we always want to get across to someone who's going to come to that Instagram page and may not scroll past those top 6. And then matching graphics and what those graphics include to those messages. So we use Instagram a lot to push out those top 6 messages, which include what we're doing in the studio. So what orders are we working on? What wholesale did we land that week? What company are we collaborating with? We'll use it for marketing. So marketing, like if there's a sale coming, or if there is a sale launch, or there's a new product launch, and so forth. So those messages kind of go from there. But that's something that I always preach to people, is to really establish your 6 messages and to get those messages on paper. Personally, I've always been someone who has believed that if I'm given a platform, that I'm going to use that platform to be passionate about whatever is happening in my life, to connect with other people. And I think that Instagram is a really cool platform because it allows me to talk about things that are going on in my life or in my business, and to be really, truly authentic on Instagram. So I talk about things that really are happening and try to show the good and the bad of my life as being a small business owner. Like I said, I really love talking about failures. I think a lot of people don't talk about that. They really highlight all of the positive things that are going on. But when shitty things happen, it's important to put that out there and let people know that you are a real person, you are a real business, and if you yourself are going to start your business, you need to expect that these bad things are going to happen to you. I'll talk about things like infertility or marital issues, or the struggles of being a baseball wife for 7 years and traveling on the road and living out of boxes and never knowing what was going to come. And then talking about the struggles of my husband being released and what that was going to go on. So I really like being authentic and telling the true story of what I'm going through, and hoping that I can connect to other people and making them feel like that they could also share those true stories. So that's how I use Instagram. We really love Instagram. Facebook is like a close second, but if I had to pick my favorite platform, it's Instagram.
Wow, that's a great tie-in, establishing your messaging, top 6 messages. I like your last thought there, authentic, making it authentic. Whatever platform you're on, you've got to be you. But at the same time, we also heard from other panelists how technology collides with social. I like that add, not subtract. That's a tough one. That sounds great. That's a tough one to do. And of course, this notion of key performance indicators, goals, Nathan mentioned return on spend, but also at the same time, we heard about this notion of how we match that with affinity and affection. So a lot going on, like a whole lot going on. So the next question I have for our panel, and I'm going to throw this out to the panel, and whoever wants to jump on it will give the panel, the mix, the opportunity here. So what challenges, what are the top challenges you face? And what are 3 things never to do?
I think the top challenge now is exhaustion. Everybody is trying to reach you on social media, and you don't want to bombard people with your message. You don't want to hit them with a sales message every time you're hitting them, but you also don't want to waste your spend. And I think it's trying to reach those people in the most efficient and effective way that you can. When Facebook marketing first started, there was no pay to play. It was just organic, and it was brilliant, and it was great, and it was the most fun thing ever. And then if you go back to my Twitter timeline, you see me going, why did Facebook change the algorithm? Why did they change that? And when the algorithm, like whether you call it EdgeRank or whatever you want to call it, Facebook won't give it an actual name. When it first came out, it was pandemonium. No one knew what to do, and I had a lot of speaking engagements talking about what the algorithm meant. And you know, now other platforms are bringing in an algorithm, and you have to understand that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, these are all businesses themselves. So you can understand why they're monetizing, but because they're so personal to us, and you know, we have this relationship with these platforms, it feels almost offensive that they're trying to make money off of us. But you have to understand, of course they're going to try to make money off of us. That's what they're there for. And I think it's trying to balance that. How do we reach people when everyone's trying to reach them? How do we not offend people by trying to sell them something on something very personal where you share your life? I mean, on Facebook, my kids are there, my wedding pictures are there. It's my life on, digitally. But how do you reach me and connect with me and convert me in a space when everybody else is doing the same thing?
Outstanding.
A struggle for us when running your business is that on any social platform, people can contact you in a million different ways. They can write a comment on a post. They can DM you on every single platform. They can email you. So one thing for us is when being a small business and only having 2 people who are actually running the operations of the business and managing the social media it was extremely overwhelming in trying to make sure that we offered top-of-the-line customer service and got back to all of those people. So we've tried really hard to put it out there, like, if there's an issue, you need to email us. Don't DM me. We're not going to respond to those DMs. And really, I know that maybe some people may disagree with not responding to DMs. We try to respond to the DM by saying, here's an email us. But I think trying to set that standard with our customers that this is what you can expect from us, and what you expect is that we're going to respond to your email, not your DM. But we do try to respond and engage on all of the comments, which can be really stressful and overwhelming, and making sure that we do that in a timely manner. The other struggle, my sister owns this business with me, her name's Hannah, and she takes all of our photos and creates all of our content, and she's really amazing at what she does. But she struggles really hard with balancing her personal social media and work. So if she's putting so much energy into work, she feels really unmotivated and not as creative or energized to spend time on her own social, which is really hard for her because she loves taking photos and loves creating that content. So she hits a lot of roadblocks in trying to decide what does she want to share when she's already sharing so much of her life in one avenue of their business.
So I'll follow up and say that like I have what Hannah feels is what I feel. So I rarely use social personally. Like I have Facebook, I have a Twitter, but I don't tweet or post all that much. I'll consume what others are posting, but like my personal life is done through my blog. And so like I'm very similar to you guys where we get probably 5,000 to 10,000 comments a day on our social channels, and I respond to maybe one. But my reverse is true. Like what I usually tell our clients is that if a consumer takes the time to engage with your brand, then we should be staffed in a way, as long as we can, to connect with that consumer, because social is about connection, right? And building affinity like Brian talked about, and relationships with those consumers is really, really important. And so, and I'll use a personal example. Dr. Pepper, 3 years ago, followed me. I remember when it happened. I can still get goosebumps when it happened. But it's that emotional connection with a brand that made me actually want to go out and buy a Dr. Pepper. That's the power that we have. And you guys all know, like if you get followed by a brand you respect, that makes you more, have a higher likelihood to engage with that brand, to retweet that brand, to do a lot with that brand. So it's important. If you can, from a business objective, business standpoint, make it happen. So.
I think it's really cool when you say like emotion, because our tagline is to evoke the feelings of game day every day. And we love that tagline because we love to evoke emotion. That's exactly what social media is how do you pull on someone's heartstrings or give them that connection or make them feel a certain way that they're gonna click on that item to buy it.
So feel is the key word here. To smile, to cry, to laugh, to be sad. If your content can make people click that share button, click that like button, that's really good content. And so emotive content is probably some of the most powerful content. I'll give you an example. One of our brands is St. Elizabeth Healthcare. And what we have constantly tried to have them do over the last 2 years is become more emotive in a healthcare category. They're healing people. And so patient stories is a really powerful way in healthcare to sort of bring out the success stories of treatment. But how do you do that differently? And so we would bring patients in and we would have them hold signs. We would do lots of amazing things. And one of our best posts ever was a lung cancer survivor who said, I never smoked a day in my life, but I got lung cancer. And it was heart-wrenching to read her story. She probably wrote like a 3,000-word Facebook post for us. And then she came and every day responded back to the survivors that were posting on the post. And it got hundreds of thousands of way outside of Northern Kentucky. But it's that emotive category that we really said, look, we're here to help people, and then we put the survivor right there front and center. And so it's a really great way to show that, this matters.
Rebecca, do you have what?
Mine's a little bit different, connecting like the hardships and what not to do. Sometimes it can be a little hard to talk with clients because they see someone do something and they think you should be doing that, and that's not always the case. It doesn't always work for your brand and your goals and your mission. So you just got to talk with them and go through like your goals and show that might not be the best thing, or if they think they might have to be in a discussion, whether it's talking about the Olympics and they think like, oh, you should tweet about this. Well, that's really random. It's not, people aren't going to connect with that. So don't feel like you have to be in a conversation if it doesn't make sense.
That's excellent thought, because when you look back at what we just heard from our panel about emotive content, obviously very powerful, one of the more powerful aspects of how we use social media, but also managing expectations around connections. That can be equally challenging as well. So that's a very good thought, because you don't have to weigh in, but you have to know how and when is best to weigh in. So again, tying together some very interesting content and use and process around social media. But perhaps the more provocative question I want to ask our panelists before I open it up for questions relates back to my opening comments. Because my opening comments related to the timeline. The timeline is relentless. In fact, I love this room because on this wall over here to my left, your right, is one of the most telling UC timelines ever created. I love it. It's a little bit static in its vision because it's fixed on the wall, but at the same time, it does kick us off in terms of the relentless nature of time. In fact, there's a relentless pursuit of time through that mural, but that timeline's going to walk out. Okay, we got two doors here. It's going to walk out both these doors, and you're the ones that are going to be doing that. And very recently, I was asked to speak at Nanyang University in Singapore, and they asked me to speak on a very singular topic. They asked me to speak on what's the future of entrepreneurship, and I was thinking of Alexis as she was telling us her connections in social media. Now, as luck would have it, I was traveling with three of my colleagues, and I asked them, I said, we were in Malaysia, I said, you're going to be going back through Singapore, come with me. I'll buy you coffee and so forth. And I want you to spend 3 minutes, and I want you to tell these students what's the future of entrepreneurship. And because they all owed me big time, they all agreed to come. And so they did an absolutely brilliant job. They got up in front of the room and they said, the future of entrepreneurship is technology, the future of entrepreneurship is innovation, the future of entrepreneurship is creativity. It was great. The students were on it big time. And I got up, I said, I'm done. They said everything that can be said about the future of entrepreneurship, except one thing. One word. I have one word about the future of entrepreneurship. And that word very simply summarizes everything that this august group has done. The future of entrepreneurship, very simply, can be summarized in one word. You. You are the future of entrepreneurship. In a similar fashion, that relentless timeline suggests to us that the future of social media is not the process, although that's very important, but you. So my question for the panel, I'll open it up and everyone can jump in as you go. What's next?
Depends what platform comes out. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, I was just at Social Media Marketing World and everyone was super hot on AI, artificial intelligence, bots. And for me, like, I think it's a great way to manage things, but like, I don't think that's the future of social media. I mean, it's because you're not interacting with a person. You know, I get asked a lot about like all the different bots of Facebook messaging, and for me, like, I don't think it's great. I'll totally use like an automated message on Facebook DMs. I think it's great to direct people to let them know that you could have a Facebook automatic message turned on saying like, hey, we don't really respond to our DMs here, but email us here, and that's turned on all the time, and that's that. But if something does come through, I always, I don't know, like, I want to help people. Like, if you're in community management, like, you're in the business of customer service, like, you should be helping them, and a bot isn't going to help them. I mean, bots are kind of cool. I don't know if anybody did the Wendy's bracket bot on Twitter. Did anybody else do that? Was it just me? Okay, I'm a nerd. So like, basically, it was all via DM. Wendy's had you pick your NCAA bracket via Twitter DM. And it would say, all right, who you want to do next, who you want to do next? And then after each round, it would come back and say, hey, you're in the top whatever percent. Do you want to change your bracket or do you want to stick with it? And it kept doing that. And it was cool, but it wasn't very social. Like, it was, like, I love the tech. Like, Snapchat spectacles, like, those look cool. But, like, I'm not really sure how it's connecting me with a person. And I think the future is really going to be, I mean, there could be something huge new and next. Everyone talks about Facebook dying. By the way, Facebook's not dying. Facebook's not dying. Facebook's changing and evolving for how people are using and consuming it. It's not dying. There's not going to be a new Facebook overnight because Facebook came along at a time when there was nothing before it. Now we have lots of different platforms and lots of different places for people to choose to consume the social media that they're consuming. And it's interesting to see that, you know, Facebook's got their camera now trying to mimic Snapchat. But you have to, when they can social, you have to remember is however you're going to connect with people on their platform of choice, you want to make sure that you're reaching them in a way that is appropriate for that platform of choice, and that you're keeping them in the conversation in that platform of choice. So the way that I put myself out on Snapchat is different to the way I put myself out on Facebook, it's Twitter, it's Instagram. And I think as people are trying to merge everything into one big Facebook, especially trying to make one big platform, I don't think that's the way to go. I think you need to think more niche about it. And I think that kind of niche kind of market is possibly the future of social media.
Yeah, and I'll follow up here and say, I think that we share a very similar view. Facebook's going nowhere fast. I mean, it's going to stay here for a long time. It owns Instagram. It's the juggernaut. I mean, but I will say that social changes. My blog started in 2007. Pinterest didn't exist. Today, Pinterest represents about 40 to 50% of all of my traffic. Huge. But as social evolves, the one thing that stays constant, the one thing that stays steady, is the thing that has stayed steady for centuries, and that is content, storytelling. Figuring out how to tell a good story, to take a good picture, then we can apply that to and make it fit the platform, evolve or change the nuance of that. But content at its core will win every day. And so figuring out how to speak to the right platform and utilize that platform in a way that makes sense for your content, that's what it's all about.
Alexis, you have a thought there?
I have no idea what's coming next.
I like that.
Yeah, everybody likes live and videos and loves all of that now, but so I have no idea what's coming next.
Better thought?
Yeah, I don't really know what's next either. It's always changing, so I just think it's important to always, read up and see what Instagram's doing next and what Facebook's doing next, and checking out those different things and checking out those apps before you suggest them to other people. Just keeping up to date with what's going on now.
And have a play around with it. Like Instagram stories, I was like, why don't you do Instagram stories? I got Snapchat for that. And now I'm playing around in Instagram stories, and there's actually a lot of functionality in it for a business that is a lot better than Snapchat, because you can have a click-through, you can have a hashtag, you can tag people, you can wait and you can storyboard out what you want to do, put your phone on airplane mode, bloop, 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 upload that all up. Like, you can do all sorts of cool stuff. I still love Snapchat. It's the best babysitter I've ever had, by the way. If you ever have a crying baby, turn him into a puppy. Easy win, easy win. But I think if you just have a play and if you see how you like to use a platform, then you're going to have a better idea of how your consumers and how your customers like to use a platform, and you can reach them much more effectively.
I will say in business, especially in my business, Insta Stories has become like the biggest social way to get people, how to translate this, if I share on an Insta story, like, this is what's coming, this is how much it will be, it's launched, it's on the website, shop here, like our DM blows up with Insta stories really fast. So that's been really fun to test out and see what do people actually want to see on your story.
If you look, like, do a test. If you've got Instagram, do a little test. Put up, do your Instagram like you normally do, but if you've not used stories before, just put something up on stories and see the amount of people who see. You can see who sees that Insta story. When you put up an Instagram post and you just in the channel itself, you can see your number of likes or whatever, but the number of people who actually see that content increases so much, because as they're going through and looking through everything else, it auto switches to the next one. And because it's time oriented, you're skipping that algorithm that Instagram has just kind of instituted recently.
And the panel is hitting this nail on the head in terms of how difficult it is to see what's next when you're in the middle of what you're doing right now. But even Alexis, who started off by saying she doesn't know what's next, actually gave us a little insight into what's next in terms of how she's using it. So, but I do want to be cognizant of our time, and I did want to give an opportunity for the audience to ask a question or two. Does someone have a question they want to pose to our panelists before we summarize? Yes, ma'am.
Do you find it okay to abandon a platform for a brand? Like, we don't really have a strong following on Twitter. Like, a lot of organizers use it, but I hate using it for my company because we just don't get any traction.
I think it's okay to be choosy with the platforms that you choose. And that was a lot of choosing.
I think one of the biggest benefits of running your own business is you get to make your own rules. And whenever I do any sort of consulting, I tell any of my clients that. There's all of these pre-written rules that you're supposed to follow, and things you're supposed to do, and things you're supposed to say, and how you're supposed to dress. But when you run your own business, you do get to make your own decisions. And if you have a strong enough backbone to know what you're going to do, and that you're going to stand by that, then I think it's completely fine.
If it's not working, don't do it. If you think about it, if somebody was always doing a direct mail campaign and sending out postcards, and they weren't getting any return on that, they would stop using that marketing tactic.
Yeah.
If a certain social channel is not working for you, don't use it. Focus your time and your energy onto the ones that you can make work for you.
Yeah, I think Nathan hit on that earlier in terms of getting that return. And yes, no, yes, no. Did I just do that? I think I did. Yes, no. You don't want to stick with something that's not working for you. You want to get that return. But at the same time, you want to kind of look out there and see what does work and what's being used in that space at that particular time. We have time for one more question. I'll take it over on this side.
Yeah, I work for a small nonprofit, and social media is just one of the many things that I do. What would you recommend focusing on if I have like a limited amount of time to?
So, I would say focus on where your audience is, or where you believe your business objectives will align the most. So nonprofits, if you're looking for donations, you're looking to engage with fundraising. It just depends on where you think. Probably Facebook, but I don't want to say that. Who knows? Everybody's different, but just figure out where. And again, it comes back to the other question: is be choiceful. Some of the brands that are mega monsters that live in downtown aren't on Twitter. They aren't on Snapchat because they don't have the resources or the funding or the time or the energy or the staff to manage those. And so if you're not going to do it well, don't do it because then it will look poorly and reflect badly on the brand. So pick one or two and commit to them. Find something like a Sprout Social or a Hootsuite or something that's affordable that you can sort of manage the feeds and go from there.
But you can still do ads on multiple platforms even if you don't have an active page. So Facebook is integrated with Instagram. So you can have a Facebook page and still serve ads to Instagram without having an Instagram account. I'm not a huge fan of that because then if you get huge interaction on the Instagram, are you going to still engage with it? You always have to be mindful of that. Big brands they mentioned don't have a Snapchat account. They're still running ads on Snapchat. Big two-letter global companies that are based downtown. You can run an ad anywhere, but I think you just have to be mindful of what are you trying to achieve. Are you trying to create a community? Are you trying to just reach eyeballs? And there's the two big metrics that you have in social are engagement and reach or impressions. And just kind of figure out, well, what do I want to do? Is it just most important? Like another big name, that same big name company has said they don't care about anything, they just want eyeballs. And I totally disagree with that.
Sure.
But they've got all the money in the world to reach as many eyeballs as they want, and something that's going to stick. When you're smaller, you have to be much more specific, and if you get that engagement, you're going to get much more organic reach, so you can make your dollar work smarter for you.
And that's a great exclamation point on our panelists' comments because you can customize it for your audience and what you want to accomplish. But you have to think about that. You need to actually articulate that. It'll emerge, it'll change, it'll morph because what's next is very difficult to see. What next is our biggest challenge. Last year, we talked a lot about videos, and indeed that's exactly what's happened. With Snapchat, almost all the platforms today are using that more, and that ties very nicely to this notion of how we emote, how we can make that connection in a very meaningful way. So, as we head out the door this morning and that timeline relentlessly pursues us behind us, we're actually leading it. We're actually taking charge of it. We're not letting it chase us. We're actually chasing it because we're going to tame it and we're going to make it work for us. Great panel. Please join me in a big round of applause. So do check hashtag UC Social Media Week, SMW, I can always get that messed up when I dyslexic voice here. Check it out, I'll be summarizing a lot of our panelists' comments. I know they'll stick around for a few minutes, we've got 10 minutes, or now 8 minutes to the next session. Professor Catalin Macari, who was sitting right there where this young woman is sitting, he just went that way. Professor Macari and I are colleagues in the College of Business. I know he's going to have a killer session coming up. I told him I promoted for him. I should really hashtag it, right? You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of Social Media Week.
I know, right? We used them at the
Thanks, Alex.
tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you kind of carved your path into social media.
All right, my name's Chad, Chad Fisher. I work for the Cincinnati Reds as digital content coordinator, which is basically just social media, and also working a little bit on the website and with our apps, such as the Ballpark app that you can use when you're at the ballpark. I'm in my first full-time year with the Reds. Last year I worked with them on behalf of Major League Baseball Advanced Media. That's the digital social branch of Major League Baseball that does the social profiles and the websites and apps as well. Before that, I worked for 5 years with the Louisville Bats, AAA affiliate down in Louisville, where I'm from. I'm a University of Louisville grad, go Cards, and I'm happy to be here. So
I'm Director of Marketing and PR for US Bank Arena Cincinnati Cyclones. I've been with the organization for about 14 years. As for how I carved my path with socials, I remember back when MySpace was a thing and we tried to jump on board when Facebook was exclusive to just college students. And you try to take advantage of that. It certainly evolved throughout those 14 years, but we try to stay on top of it. On top of my Cyclones duties, I also am in charge of all the marketing, PR, and promo for every event at the arena. We're a very small staff, about 24 full-timers. 5 of those are dedicated to just hockey. The other 19 of us walk the fine line between hockey and every other contemporary event. So thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of today.
My name is DJ Schweitzer. I'm the Director of Communications, an evolving title that's becoming Director of Media, Design, and Supporter Relations at FC Cincinnati. We're a small organization. This is my second year with the club. Carving my path into social media, I actually started off as a blogger, had a website that I kept in my spare time that kind of evolved into me being a freelance soccer reporter, started writing for the Inquirer, a couple other publications around the world as well as locally, and that eventually caught the eye of FC Cincinnati when they were launching, and they brought me on board to do all of their social media. I also handle the website as well as handling the direct relationship between our supporters groups, the people at the end of the stadium who make all the noise, wave the flags, and let off all the smoke. So I work that relationship for the club, and really happy to be here today.
My name is Brendan. Don't hold it against me. I work at Xavier. In my 3rd year, I got my start doing a lot of odd jobs, probably a lot like these guys. Started as an undergrad in the sports information office, ended up doing a grad degree in new media studies, and was fortunate enough to come back home, get a job back in Cincinnati. I oversee all of our social, digital, do a lot of our website stuff. I'm also a primary sport contact for baseball, men's soccer. Wear a lot of hats, as a lot of people in our profession do, and happy to be here as well. And thanks for having me.
So just to get us started, obviously social media, so much of it comes from our phone now. So what are a couple of the few apps that you guys, aside from the actual platforms themselves, that you guys find necessary on a day-to-day basis?
With us, we schedule everything through Adobe Social. It's a service provided to us by Major League Baseball Advanced Media, and they work with Adobe to make our social scheduling platform available to us. So there's an app for it that you can use on your phone, and also it's desktop-based as well. And we use that to basically schedule anything on Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus, or LinkedIn. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about Instagram. You have to do that in real time still, but we use Adobe Social most of the time, and it's very helpful.
Yes.
Telling Tailwind. Tailwind schedules Instagram.
Tailwind does? Amazing. I did not know that.
We use Tailwind. No, we don't. We actually use Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can include YouTube. A lot of that's just organic to the regular site. I'm a big TweetDeck fan. Use 1,000,001 different filters and searches. Try to find anybody who's talking about our product. Something as simple as Cyclones game. We're big amongst that crowd with our dollar beer night, so maybe Cyclones dollar beer, Cyclones beer. It's just a nice way to try to find those people who aren't directly tagging us. So I would certainly TweetDeck's my go-to.
So Tailwind is something we're actually trying for the first time this month. So that's been a fun little experiment as we've gotten used to that platform. I'm also a huge proponent of TweetDeck. I actually have it in a permanent browser window on my phone as well, so I can get at it if I need to for mobile. But I use also secondary apps to manage my own personal accounts. So I still have those that I run from time to time. They've dwindled over time, but I use those to make sure I'm not posting from the wrong account, which I've done from time to time. So my boss isn't a big fan of that.
It's everybody's worst fear, right?
We've all done it too.
Yeah.
Got about 18 Twitter accounts on my phone, so. I would say the same thing. I spend a lot of my time on TweetDeck. Find that to be very useful. IMG Play is an app I use a lot for creating short GIFs from videos I take on my phone. I think that's a really cool app. Snapseed is another one for just basic photo editing before you get to Instagram, before you get to Twitter. Those are kind of my go-tos for just on-the-fly stuff that you might take with your phone when you're on the road with a team or something like that.
So nowadays, everything's kind of who can top who in the social media landscape as far as the platforms that we're all using on a day-to-day basis. How do you guys decide what content goes where and how invested you guys are in each different platform?
Well, for the Reds, it's kind of easy because if Joey Votto hits a go-ahead home run in the 7th inning, you're going to put it on every social platform that you can to make sure you get the most sets of eyes on it. For other things, we kind of take note of how the demographics look on each platform. We know that our Instagram users are generally younger, our Facebook users are generally older, so just knowing what applies to them kind of helps you determine where to place your certain messages. So, for instance, we have Kids Opening Day coming up on the 15th. It's something they started last year, and obviously you want kids to know about it and be excited about it, so we'll definitely put it on Instagram. You want parents to know about it because they'll have to pay for kids to get there, so we'll definitely put it on Facebook as well. So it's just generally shaping your messages around those platforms like that.
Yeah, we're very, very similar. Each of our platforms has a voice, has a personality. Facebook's very straightforward, pretty informational. Twitter, very, very engaging, very conversational. I have no problem being a smartass on that, kind of just chirping back at people. You got to kind of watch what you're doing there. Instagram, you're kind of looking for something a little bit behind the scenes, something that can really speak and tell a story. Snapchat's just something that's going to catch the eye of somebody who is younger, somebody who just is going to be engaged by something behind the scenes, something that's happening real time in game. We recently invested in spectacles once those were available for purchase, and that's really upped our Snapchatting for sure.
Yeah, so we last year spent a good portion of benchmarking and finding out what platforms work best for certain messagings that we put out over our various social channels, and found some pretty interesting results this off season as we kind of compiled the data and looked over them. So things like merchandise posts we found to be way more popular and more engaged on Twitter, which was a little surprising to us. But things like marketing towards parents lean towards more traditional demographics like Facebook. And then this year we're really making a big push into Snapchat. We saw a lot of feedback from our fans and surveys that we put out postseason to try to feel out where people thought we were lacking. And Snapchat was an area where I didn't even need the results. I knew we were lacking there, but people told us about it as well. So we use a lot of different metrics and ways that we kind of put out and decide where we're going with things. But ultimately, it's been a very big learning process over the last year for us.
Similar, I would say we've done a lot of guess and check in the last 2 to 3 years. One of the interesting things right now is you have Instagram stories, you have Facebook stories, you have Messenger stories that basically every platform is adding, consistently every year. And so you have, voices telling you be more, do more, post more, and we've tried to stay true to, we want to be really good at our main 3 platforms. We don't want to overstretch ourselves. We are small staff, similar to a couple of these guys. So really it comes down to what can you be effective at doing. You do look at a lot of analytics. For instance, Twitter, people don't click on links typically, so we try to just be more visual, a lot of GIFs, a lot of fun content. Definitely conversational, try to be a voice with the fan, and basically try to be like you're sitting on the couch with somebody watching the game. Maybe a couple less beers, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Just curious, does anybody here have a difference on their content strategy for a win versus a loss? Is there any time that you guys won't post somewhere if it's a loss, or depending on how kind of the loss happens?
With us last year, we kind of stayed away from losses on Facebook and Instagram. Obviously on Twitter, we want to get the information out regardless, but on Instagram and Facebook, where you have a platform for comments that you might have to go through, we decided last year that it wasn't worth it going with a 90-loss team to post losses on there. And also the other thing is my boss Lisa, she's this is basically, I guess her idea is that when you put a recap for a loss on Instagram, you want to get likes, but you don't want people to like the fact that you lost. So maybe you don't want to put your losing recaps on Instagram, but that's up to you. It depends on how your fans react.
It's like for us, it's really not about wins and losses. We're such a casual hockey market. I mean, when I started, there was about 1,700 youth hockey players in the market. We're down to about 700. We're having rinks and sheets close. Seems like every other month now. So, I mean, we don't celebrate the wins and losses on all of our platforms. Twitter, Facebook are going to hit it, but it's not hitting Instagram, it's not hitting Snapchat. If we get shelled, we'll have a little bit of fun with it. I kind of look back to last year when the Reds actually got no hit by, I believe, Jake Arrieta. It was, Reds lose, we get a walk. It was, I forget exactly what the byline was, but it was fantastic, and it got more attention than, at least locally, than what the no-hitter did. So for us, it's not really about wins and losses, it's about fun and about promotions.
Yeah, we kind of take the similar approach. We're not afraid of, not to say that there's a bad strategy in not posting them, but we're not necessarily afraid of taking those type of hits. As a new team in the market, we're really trying to thrust our name out there, and we know even losses capture people's attention right now. So we post them, but we do change the voice a little bit when we take a loss. And much in the same way, we poke fun at ourselves a little bit as well when we lose, to kind of give people reason to laugh in the aftermath of a loss as well.
I would say similar things. Obviously, losses don't do very well in terms of analytics, but we do try to be consistent. You don't want to shy away, and if your fans have come to expect certain content from you, I'd say you have to deliver that. Another thing I've noticed, especially on Facebook, is our fans tend to use that as kind of a therapeutic place to get in there and talk about which coach we should fire, or which player needs to have more playing time, etc. And as long as there's no profanity or anything inappropriate, I think that's a great thing to get that conversation going. And then on Twitter and Instagram, I would say we have the same policy. We just try to be consistent in everything we do.
Brendan might be able to speak to this, but I feel like as a college account, we're so much closer in contact to our coaches, and the fact that they also are using social media as a recruiting tool, I think that sometimes hinders us a little bit in kind of poking fun of ourselves with the losses. Do you guys ever get any feedback from, I'd be curious, you three, on kind of those fun jabs at maybe not some bright moments?
Our director of media relations wasn't too happy with the tweet that Sean referenced about getting no hits. So,
did she feel better about it after all the fun?
This wasn't my boss. This is somebody else.
Yeah.
So he just, I guess, doesn't have as good a sense of humor as we do. But the actual text of it was recap: Reds draw 4 losses, or I'm sorry. Reds draw 4 walks versus Cubs. That's all it said. It didn't say anything about losing 16-0, although that was on the graphic. And didn't say anything about getting no hit. But at the same time, a few tweets later, we congratulated Jake Arrieta for the no hitter. Obviously, it's the right thing to do, and it helps engagement because I think the recap tweet maybe got like 6,000 something retweets, and the tweet congratulating Arrieta got maybe 2,000 or 3,000. So that works.
So we really don't get any blowback from any of our staff or our stakeholders. Everybody kind of knows the game that we're playing. So, tough loss is a tough loss, and our coach kind of knows what to expect from us, and as does our GM and the rest of our office. And there's not really issues there.
Yeah, I've definitely run into some circumstances where I've angered my superiors. My boss, Jeff Birding, comes from the Bengals. He worked for them for 19 years, and they obviously have a very different social voice than we do within the realm of soccer and professional soccer in the U.S. So there have been a couple times where I've done some of those things, and I've had to walk him through the idea of why we would approach it that way. And he's very open to understanding why I would approach a loss in that particular way. And then you show them sometimes you get great hits on those type of losses, and you go, look, people can commiserate with us, and they understand. We had the playoff loss last year after a really great year. We broke another attendance record in that very last game. And after the game, I was kind of saying to him, like, it's almost good that we lost. Now we're a Cincinnati sports team. Like, we've disappointed everyone. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to understand the humor that people are looking for and the feelings that the fans are going from. And not long ago, I was just a fan. Like, literally 3 years ago, that's all I was. And so I've always kept in mind, what would I be looking for from the teams that I followed? And what would make me happier with them after I was so disappointed with them a couple minutes before.
Piggyback off that, I would say I'm fortunate enough to work with an administration that is very hands-off in terms of social media. They kind of let me and my counterpart in marketing control is pretty much all us. So we try to be tactful. Again, as a college, there is a fine line. We're certainly not a pro team. We don't have kind of some of the things you see with NBA accounts going back and forth. We have dipped our toes in the water. For instance, Villanova lost on a heartbreaking buzzer beater to Wisconsin in the NCAA tournament, and I got on our main account and basically tweeted at them like, we know how it feels, that kind of thing. So I think it's similar to what DJ said. You try to put your fan hat on and commiserate with your fan base.
So how do you guys keep up with every new thing that's coming out once a week, and how do you guys decide when you have the right time to jump on a new trend, or when you divert resources from something else to go towards something new?
We work closely with Major League Baseball Advanced Media, and they help us out a lot with new trends and new platforms, things that we can and can't do whenever things change. So they help us a lot. And you know, I wouldn't say we ever really like pull resources from one place to another. Generally, we're always looking at every platform to make sure that the message is out there and make sure that we're.
It's all about discovering. I mean, you can see what other teams are doing, and it's maybe something catches your fancy, and you get inspired to do something. We don't do a ton of trend setting. I would say spectacles, especially at our level, is something that no other team is really messing with. But we jumped in and had a lot of success with that. But it's just a conversation. Our team is very small. We meet on a regular basis. If somebody's discovered something new, we sit, we chat. How can we apply this? How can this affect our fans? And that's how we make that decision.
Yeah, so as another small organization, our big thing is getting out onto every channel as much as we possibly can right now. We're starting to become a little bit more strategic in which platforms we're looking and choosing certain things for. And again, that goes into the benchmarking that we completed last year and are still completing this year. But for the most part, we're just trying to focus on getting ourselves onto all the platforms and in front of as many eyeballs as we possibly can at this point. That said, I do live and spend a lot of time in TweetDeck, and I have 3 columns at the end of my TweetDeck that are what are trending in certain areas. So trending nationally, trending within the world of soccer, and then I also look at trending within the Ohio and Cincinnati areas to try to get a feel of what's kind of hot and relevant for our markets right now. And those help to shape a little bit the conversation and the ultimate memes that we maybe pursued as opposed to other ones.
I would second that. Staying up on whatever is currently trending on Twitter is huge. We also have a social media internship at Xavier called The Barracks. There's about 7 or 8 kids that we oversee that help out on game day. They do a lot of monitoring for us, and they'll bring a lot of new ideas to the table, which is very helpful. I also follow a hashtag called SM Sports. I would highly encourage everyone to follow that hashtag, get involved in the conversation. There's always people putting fun graphics, GIFs, new ideas. Anything that is new, evolving in social media tends to land there. So those are some of the ways I stay current. There's also a blog called Social in Sport. Jessica Smith writes it. She's pretty well known within the college world in terms of social media. She does a great job. So kind of looking at trends, looking at teams, what are some of the new things people are doing. 360 Periscope recently was a new thing. So there's a lot of ways to stay current. You kind of just have to put your arms around it all. So
kind of piggyback on that, there's quite a few different hashtags and different chats that happen that I'll follow. There's YP Sports Media. I don't remember all the hashtags offhand. There's another one that I follow on Tuesday nights. It's led by a gentleman named Ken Troop. and it's all about social media and sports. And it's just a group of individuals who are sitting on their couch, and they're all, questions asked with the hashtag. And this is question 1, and then everybody follows with answers. And it's just a great way to see what other teams, especially teams that are outside of your sport, and what they're doing. Discovery is everything. I think that's a very, very pointed, very easy way to go about it. There's also a Twitter account called Front Office Sports. They're doing great things right now. They're very content heavy. It's all organic content made by people in our positions. And quite honestly, it's a lot of people who are maybe in college or just out of college. So it's fresh, they're hungry, and it's great, great content.
Brendan, we'll start with you this time. How much of your own personality do you find that you are kind of leaking into your brand and platform that you're running, and how much do you guys ever have to kind of pull back and balance what's your opinion versus what's the brand's opinion?
That's a tough line to walk. I'm someone who enjoys a good pun. I try to inject my sense of humor. I think as a social media manager, that's probably a skill that someone who's hiring for a team is looking for. So there does need to be some personality there, but at the same time there has to be a distinct brand voice where that can be repeatable. So if one of my interns is posting or one of my coworkers is posting, it doesn't seem like it's just completely different. So that's something that we sometimes struggle with, just because there are a lot of hands that touch our accounts, and that's something that we're constantly working to refine within meetings and just talking about. We often coach our interns. We'll pull up last game's tweets and we'll say, all right, so what would you have said in this instance, or what kind of feedback, which post did you like, which didn't you like? So there's a lot of different ways to tackle that, but it is a challenge.
Yeah, the FC Cincinnati account is probably a near duplicate of my personality. It's been weird. I had my own social accounts, and I had a fairly large following that I built as I moved into the role with FC Cincinnati of my own. And there are times where I catch myself where I am starting to write something that I would write for my personal account, where I go nope, and I delete it back. Because there's a little sense of professionalism. There's sometimes I was a lot snarkier with my own account that I would choose to be with professional team accounts. Two, you don't want to alienate fans. In the past, I wasn't particularly worried about alienating someone as much as I am now, where we're actually trying to convince them to become fans of a young organization. So my boss definitely brought me in part because he liked the tone that I used for my own account. But one of our first conversations was like, you do know how to dial that back a little bit, right? And I pointed to some evidence. I worked with an even more minor league semi-professional soccer team that used to be in town called the Cincinnati Saints. They moved to Dayton, became the Dayton Dynamo, and was involved with that move. But I run their team Twitter account as well, so I kind of pointed to that as evidence of being like, yeah, I know how I can do that. So your personality is inevitably going to bleed into the accounts you run. It's almost inevitable. But there is a point where you have to kind of check yourself and say, this is the point where I can't actually be me, and I need to actually pay attention to the other entities that are involved with the account.
Yeah, snarkiness certainly runs supreme, especially on Twitter. There are a ton of times where somebody chirps you and write it, but you just can't bring yourself to hit that tweet button. You back it off, and you're always walking on eggshells. You don't want to alienate somebody. You can have fun with them. You can't ultimately piss them off, and the last thing you want them is for them to walk away from their fandom of your organization. So you're always on eggshells. You're always kind of second guessing every single thing you're putting out. But for us, voice, it all comes down to the different medium. Twitter, like I said, we're fun, and I think that definitely comes through. We try to put that through with our interns when they first start. We talk about walking on eggshells. They're still trying to feel out, find those limits, those expectations, and you kind of have to push them a little bit. Sometimes you push them a little bit too far, and they do something maybe you don't completely approve of. But yeah, I think everybody's personality seeps through a little bit.
I'll echo a lot of what Sean said. For every reply tweet that we've sent, there's probably been 2 more that I typed out and didn't send. You have to be careful. With us, right now we have 3 people that are currently on our Twitter account, which is our main focus, I would say, besides Facebook. So that way, when you have only 3 people on it versus a university where you might have 2 people at 7 or 8 different sports working on it, we have a little more control over the voice. luckily my voice is very similar to what the Reds would say. When I was working with the AAA team in Louisville, it was basically like DJ said, that account was my voice, but I've been able to dial it back a little bit with the Reds. We obviously want to be the quote-unquote nice account, but we also don't shy away from throwing around a few zingers whenever the time is right for them.
There are definitely some major personalities out there in sports. When you look at his last name, Pat with the LA Kings, the person who runs the Blue Jackets account, Atlanta Hawks in the NBA. I mean, you talk about a filter. I'm not 100% sure that they actually have it. I've had conversations with Pat out in LA before, and he has no problems taking that jump, that leap of faith, and then paying the consequences. For him, it's all about the timeliness. It's being on top of things and just not missing a beat, and he's willing to pay that price. He's been very successful with it, and it has gotten him in trouble before, but you know, he's also had some things that have gotten some very, very viral responses and been huge, so it's a rough world.
Yeah, just to build off that a little bit too, when you try to run that risk a little bit, you need to have the leash to be able to do it. And sometimes when you burn and crash and burn on a choice that you make, that shortens your leash a little bit. So there is kind of a tug and pull. I'm always kind of dragging my boss along with me a little bit and saying like, hey, let's try this. But there are other times where he's rightfully said like, maybe we dial it back a little bit, and it gets me out of maybe the heated moment that I was trying to diffuse in an inappropriate way.
How do you guys separate yourselves as an authentic voice as the official account as opposed to some of the blogs, especially when things are not going so well? We can always talk about, well, this is why so-and-so is doing so well, this is why we're winning. There's not as many pieces that we put out, hey, this is why we're losing, and that's kind of the gap that some of those blogs fill. So how do you guys kind of try and filter that out when things aren't going well?
Again, as with posting losses, we just try to be consistent in everything we do. So within our Twitter landscape, we have an account called Xavier Game Day, and win or loss, we post score updates, the media timeouts, and you know if we're getting our butts kicked, we tend to focus on player stats or maybe something interesting. I can recall getting a beat down at Villanova this year and really harping in on how we were winning the rebounding battle, and you know our fans kind of took that, and you know, we got some backlash, but again, you drive conversation that way. You get people talking about your brand. I think a lot of the blogs and media accounts do a lot of just text updates, so I think we separate ourselves as the brand by being very visual and using our brand elements, and I think it's very distinct from what you might see from banners on the Parkway or a Musketeer Report or those types of outlets.
Yeah, one way that we help combat it is by using kind of standardized graphics within social media as well. This year in particular, we really focus on having a holistic brand strategy so that when you see something that comes from our account, you kind of know that it's official. The other thing that we lean heavily upon is actually bloggers themselves. Within minor league soccer at this point, there's not a whole lot of coverage, so blogs are actually kind of the main area where we get most of our coverage. Now, we're lucky in Cincinnati in that we have buy-in from all the major media organizations, but if you look at some of the other markets in our league, like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which people in this room may not even know where that is, it's a lot tougher to get coverage when you don't necessarily have a market there to cover you. So we've been lucky in that we have fans that are maybe a little more critical, and we have some bloggers that are maybe a little bit more positive about what things are, and we allow them to kind of control the narrative. And it's not unusual that we occasionally help control the narrative by helping to feed them a little bit of information from time to time, and giving them, you know, guest appearances on their podcasts or things of that nature. So you're not necessarily buying favor, but you're kind of courting them and letting them understand, and if they're kind of giving the same narrative that you like, you can kind of reinforce that in certain ways.
We're kind of the opposite when it comes to local media. Nobody cares about us. We've had one article in the Inquirer this year. That's right, one over 72 games. It was for opening night. We had fan appreciation this last weekend. We had 2 TV cameras show up to cover the game. Mainstream coverage simply isn't there. Past that, we've got one blogger. His name is Sinbin Cyclones. Lovely gentleman named Dakota. And you know, we try to foster that relationship. He kind of does fill those gaps. We certainly don't want to push the negativity that may be out there. You there's a certain sect of our fan base would like to see us have a new head coach. He's actually very supportive of our coach, and we'll give him some crumbs here and there, things that maybe he otherwise wouldn't figure out. We had a returning player in the off season. Our fans were kind of restless that we hadn't re-signed so many guys, and we threw that little crumb out there. He took it, ran with it, and ended up being a pretty successful little campaign for us. But wish we had more bloggers to lean on. We've got one guy. We love it.
With us, it's all about highlighting the positive. Going back to last year, obviously in a 90-plus loss season, there's not a lot of positives that you think you can highlight, but if you look closely, you can find some stuff. Obviously, we had a guy, Adam Duvall, who hit over 30 home runs, was an all-star, was in the home run derby. Joey Votto had a monster second half after a very dismal first couple months. And Billy Hamilton started getting on base a lot in certain bases. So highlighting the positive, it is a good thing. Obviously, when you do that, people will kind of see through that a little bit and realize, yeah, but we still lost 90 games or whatever. But generally, when things are going bad, the bloggers are going to highlight that. People that aren't paid by the organization are going to take that stuff and run with it because people love to complain online. That's just the way our business works. But so as far as the brand and knowing that what you're seeing is our coverage of the game, I have made a graphic for basically every possible offensive outcome for an at-bat for the Reds. If Billy Hamilton hits a triple, there's a graphic for that. If Adam Duvall hits a double, there's a graphic for that, et cetera, et cetera. And they're all based to look like the cover of the media guide and the cover of the season ticket book. So it kind of all works together. So it comes from us. And there have been instances where there's one Twitter account that kind of drives my boss up a wall because it looks official, but it's not, and it is very rude to other people. And at one point, somebody was asking us, how do you let this person be affiliated with you? And we're like, well, we're not. It's a separate website that has nothing to do with us. So sometimes you have to explain that to them. Most of the people realize that, the blog Red Machines or whatever other blogs are out there that cover the Reds, most people realize that that those aren't affiliated with the team. And of course, being verified on all your pages helps if your organization is notable enough, which I think most of ours are the Cyclones verified. So I know it wasn't until recently that Twitter started verifying minor league clubs. I tried to do that endlessly when I was with the Louisville Bats, and it didn't happen until after I left. But they finally started, I guess they opened up the application for to have accounts verified. So if your company or your team has a website and a Twitter account, you can probably get verified now. So that helps and goes a long way too.
So with social media turning, really kind of into a sales and marketing with ads and all the other things, how do you guys kind of hit your requirements as far as, your marketing, IMGs, promotional things without losing some of your voice and kind of that authenticity with your fans?
For us, it's all about integration. It's integrating them into the conversation. We won't do a paid or promoted tweet or a post. It won't be, Aquafina, go buy a case. It may be, relating it back to a play or something that's happened. It's just like your game operations. It's properly integrating the sponsor so that way the fan, the patron doesn't feel like they're just being pitched the entire time. When you start to become too salesy, you kind of lose your voice. You start to lose your followers. It's just a very, very bad path to walk down. So for us, it's all about integration. I think we can even do a better job upon it. But yeah, integration.
I'll build off that. So last year, I came into the game late. They hired me in February, started in the middle of February, and there was already what I will call, for lack of a better word, a social strategy that was being utilized. And a lot of times it was basically, we have a sponsor, and I'm going to call it a billboard tweet or post that we put up that was, try out Pepsi. And they trended really poorly, and I immediately went to that data once I had the ability to get it and took them to my superiors and said, we can't do this anymore. So contractually, we were obligated to do some of it for the remainder of the year, but this year we took a completely different approach. Part of the benchmarking that I mentioned a couple times throughout the year was seeing routine posts that we put up, things like halftime graphics, scoreline graphics, starting lineup posts, how did those perform? And then once you know how well they're going to perform and you know how many eyeballs tend to look at them on an average basis, you can then take those to sponsors and say, this is what this value is for this type of post. Would you like to sponsor that in lieu of actually kind of having a billboard post that we put up? So this year you'll notice in some of our graphics we have a sponsor that's along the bottom. Our starting 11 is sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts. So when we post on our starting 11 for the match, we'll say this Cincinnati or FC Cincinnati starting 11 brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts, and it'll be down in that bottom graphic, but it won't necessarily be saying go have a donut from Dunkin' Donuts. Now we will build those in from time to time, and you kind of mentioned kind of integrating them into the conversation. All the sponsors that we work with, I end up having a conversation with them so that they're aware. And it's also helping to educate our sponsorship people so they understand what type of sponsorships they should be selling so that people get their appropriate name out there. So that's been a big element of my year 2 push, is kind of changing the way that we do kind of corporate sponsorships so that it's less of a kind of sales pitch so much as it's integrated into our normal conversation anyway.
It's definitely a dance we do with our sponsorship team. Sometimes they get ahead of themselves and they sell something, and then it's how do we integrate this into our strategy. I try to always think about the audience, try to always think about our fan base and how are we incentivizing them for following us. So an example of just how far this has come in the last 3 to 4 years. When I started, we were posting text on Facebook that said, because we were contractually obligated to, it's Wednesday, recycle with Rumpke, etc. And we've kind of taken that back, and we meet with our sponsorship team on a regular basis, and we say, okay, so you've sold this thing to Rumpke, here's kind of our content menu, this is what you can pick from the sell. And we were able to change that contract to become a Rumpke Recycles Great Moments in Xavier Basketball History post, which performed infinitely better because it made sense that it would come out on our platforms. So it's kind of a challenge, but at the same time, if you're creative and you think of ways, you see a sponsor, identify where that could go within what you're already doing. It is kind of easy to incorporate at times, and at others it's a challenge, but yeah.
With what Brendan said, it is all about delivery. There's certain ways that you can say things to make them better, like you mentioned, the recycling thing. With us, sometimes it's out of our hands. Major League Baseball Advanced Media owns our accounts, so they have the ability to sell sponsorships, and basically they just have to work with us to get the posts posted. So for instance, on Tuesday, when we post this Bud's for You with our Cincinnati Reds Budweiser can, it says raise one high at lunchtime on Tuesday. Sometimes that stuff's just not really avoidable because they're contractually obligated to post it. But with our messages, as far as marketing for what we're selling, definitely the visual aspect of it is always good. You want to have solid visual images as well as your copy to make it more engaging.
And as you guys get into front offices and you get into different positions, find your corporate guys, talk to them, and make sure they understand your initiatives. Sales guys just want to sell. They just want a signature on the dotted line. They will have a client who just says, I want social media. What does that mean? No, they just want social media. You have to kind of break it down and explain to them, why you're taking the path that you're taking, why you can't have these blatant ads, and just kind of general feel the voice of the organization. That's kind of a very, very important step that I think a lot of people, just don't consider. And bottom line is dollars in any organization, but you've got to have the backbone to have that conversation with your people.
All right, so we'll open it up for questions now. Does anybody have a question for any of our panelists?
You keep talking about TweetDeck. Like, why do you like that better than Hootsuite? Because isn't it pretty much the same concept?
For me, it goes back to when Hootsuite originally started. It was the way that it was shortening URLs for like photos and stuff. It was like the owly dot, and they wouldn't show up within the timeline. So, I think I'm the statesman here. So, way back when Hootsuite started, that's why I prefer TweetDeck, and I've just stuck with it. There's something about comfort and especially patterns and regularity. It's kind of like go-to.
I'll say too, I know Hootsuite always is trying to sell us a package, so them constantly trying to ask me to invest in a package when we already have something we're using. Your question?
Yeah, so from a you guys are talking about like creating graphics, posting pictures, posting video, whatever it may be. From a content creation standpoint, how do your teams go about doing that? Is it just you, like the person managing social media, you know, they're doing it all themselves, or do you guys have designers and stuff, videographers, photographers? How do you go about doing that to make sure that the content's always up to date, always fresh, and always, you know, on brand?
It's a combination of a lot of that with us. So I make a lot of the social media graphics, and OLB Advanced Media helps us with some other graphics for like our the lineup graphics that you see that we post and the recap graphics. Then we also have a creative services department that can help us with other things if we need some collateral for any sort of promotion or marketing material, whatever. We generally like to go through them just to make sure everything's good there. We do have a video production team. It's 4 or 5 people, a couple interns to produce video content for us. So at an organization the size of the Reds, it's a lot easier. We also have MLB Advanced Media feeding us highlights every game. So that it's a lot easier at this level for me. When I was in AAA, it was nothing like that whatsoever. Me and another guy did all the graphics. We had a video production team of like 1 guy that was there for just to do the games. And you know, that made getting video relatively impossible. So it's just the size of the production in general, and with the Reds, obviously it's a lot easier. I imagine with the other guys over here, it's probably not that easy.
It's not. We have a graphic designer. He's great for things that are well planned out, things that we know we're going to do later in the week, but things on the fly, social graphics, video, it comes down to myself and my broadcaster. My broadcaster's on air. I'm either dealing with customer service issues, dealing with promotions and game ops, or I'm clipping video highlights. So I try to do as much as I can. We tend to lean on our interns. This year's interns haven't been quite as good with any sort of graphics, video. Young lady who was with us last year currently is with the Reds named Miranda. She was fantastic. And we've seen it drop. Everybody kind of, you know, you hope for that consistency from year to year. We, without a doubt, I can tell you right now, we had a drop because of the people we had in place, and we've got to find a way to not let that happen. But you know, if there's one thing that I'll kind of preach to everybody in this room, diversify your skill set. You need to know Photoshop. You need to know a little bit about Illustrator. You need to know how to cut video highlights, how to do, you know, GIFs on the run. It seems like it should be somebody else's job. It's not. It's yours. It's going to fall on your shoulders. Learn how to do it. Learn now. Because if you can sit in an interview and say, I can do this, this, and this, look at my resume, you're going to pop so much more than anybody else in your field, and it's going to really take you to good places.
You know, one of the things that actually landed me my job, and was one of the questions they asked me during my interview process, was who does all the graphics for your website? And I said, me. And they went, oh, so you can do that? And I went, yes. And they said, oh, that's great. And then we continued on the rest of the conversation. And ultimately that has landed, much as you said, squarely on my shoulders. So last year I did every ounce of design that came out of FC Cincinnati. I had to work with some templates that were there already, and I do not love those templates. And we are slowly phased those out. This last season, at the end of the year, I was already working on branding for this season. We kicked that off when the MLS commissioner came here, when we've been making our push towards Major League Soccer, and have been using that as we continued into this season. So anything that you see that goes up on social media from us, outside of things that come from sponsors, that actually comes out of my mouse. And it's been a fun process, but it's also extremely time consuming because I'm not just doing it for social media, I'm also doing it for our ticketing and marketing departments. So we finally hired in someone else, actually 3 weeks ago, that has some additional graphic design experience. But it was a big reason why I landed the job, and it's a big reason why I have such a large role within the organization now, is that I touch so many of those pieces. So like our ticket books, those are things that I actually ended up designing, our tickets themselves, the graphics that go across the scoreboards, all those type of things were things that I had to learn how to do in the process. I spent a big portion of last week, or the week before the season, trying to learn how to animate my own GIFs. And actually do animation. So that was something I'd never really dipped my toes into before, and now I know a little bit, and enough to make me dangerous. But definitely diversify. Being able to do graphic work is a huge element within social media, and really posting things without graphics is almost not worth your time.
Can we just settle this right now? It's GIFs, right? GIFs.
GIF like the peanut butter.
I like to say GIF.
Yeah.
The lines have been drawn. Winner.
The creator says it's GIF.
That's right.
He trumps all.
I would echo what Sean said. I get probably 10 to 30 undergrads a year walking into my office saying, like, how do I get a job in sports? How do I do what you do, et cetera? And I say, you know, learn skills. Like, what skills do you have? And if you don't know Photoshop, if you don't know how to work Premiere, at least understand content management, if not code, you're gonna have a hard time getting a job, because a lot of us do wear all those hats. And I'll say the same thing. We work with a branding firm called BLDG. They do some of our brand elements, but they just kind of give them to us, and then, you know, it's off to the races. Where I'm sizing them for different platforms, making those designs from scratch a lot of times. But for us, like, in terms of content generation, it's all hands on deck. We have 4 full-time employees, but we all kind of do different things specific to a men's basketball game. You have somebody who's writing the recap for GoZaver.com. You have somebody who's doing all the media relations and checking the record books, making notes, etc. With somebody who's shooting video highlights, and then I'm overseeing everything that goes out through our Twitter accounts, Facebook, Instagram, etc., and our internship team. So I can't possibly do all that at once. We do have some interns we lean on. They'll be doing things like Storify or pushing out graphics through a website we use called BoxOut. Kind of removes the Photoshop from the process for interns. It's huge, because I can say you're doing the score updates, and they can just push those out. But there's just a lot of moving parts on a game day, and again, I just think it's so important to have the ability to do all those things on your own, because a lot of people, you're not going to be in a position where those are all just handed to you. So
We're just about out of time, but if anybody had one more quick question, go ahead right here.
So knowing that you guys make your own content, what is your favorite type to put out if someone scores or something big happens? Like a video, GIF, graphic?
this year, hands down for me, we kind of made our star player into a chef. Trayvon blew it. He started out, he scored 40 against UC, still lost, which was unfortunate. But at that point in time, you know, I was putting out a lot of things that were saying he was cooking, and so it just kind of transitioned, and then he became Chef Trey. So we had a Trey tracker for every 3 he hit, and it's an animated GIF with like flame emojis on it, and we just had a lot of fun with that. And even Trayvon, I asked him, like, hey, is that cool? And he thought it was funny. So I was like, good, because I was going to keep doing it anyway. But, you know, when the players like your stuff, that's huge too, because a lot of times you don't get that feedback, and you're kind of operating in a vacuum. But we got some of that this year, and that was really cool.
I'll chime in and say, just from, I'm sure that these guys have that too, but we're limited because of our TV contracts. We can't put out any video of our actual basketball game during our basketball game. So, because ESPN owns that footage, so it does kind of take away some of the opportunities where somebody just had a great dunk. It's like, all right, well, you can see it in an hour. Just hang with us.
Yeah, we do have, as part of our game day production, we have a production team that films and handles all of the video side of our game day operations, and ultimately we've set it up so that they will post kind of high visibility moments, so goals, maybe a big save, a big defensive stop. They will cut those and put them up automatically on our Twitter feed. We had actually a big conversation last week about voice for that and how we should approach those things. But then we'd love to do more animated stuff ultimately, but what it really boils down to for an organization of our size is, do I have the time to actually make that? And most of the time the answer to that is no. We use as much graphic content as we possibly can, and we try to make every single post we can new graphic content, but that's not always how it ends up working out.
You have one quick question?
Yeah, it was just more about, and it kind of was talking about how if you guys at all interact with the coaches, and I assume to a lesser extent the players, to kind of manage what they put out in their own, because they have their own followings, but is there any interaction there?
With us, actually, we just started a fan vote for a bobblehead. So the fans are going to vote throughout the month of April on who the last Reds bobblehead should be this year. And the 5 guys that are up for that were all on Twitter, so I was able to direct message them and say, hey, here's this tweet. Maybe you want to retweet it to your followers so they go and vote for you. And then here's also the link to the voting page. So if you want to promote it on your own later, you can do that as well. So there's a little bit of interaction with us. Mostly, if it happens, it's all organic. But then there's stuff like that that will kind of push them in that direction.
We'll give them slight nudges. For us, you know, we're a developmental league. Most of our kids are 22 years old, straight out of college or juniors. It's the first time away from home, first time with the banks and a lot of bars, and with the phone in their hands. So, you know, we don't, we really monitor our guys and try to make sure they're making good decisions with social media, and we have that talk prior to the season. But we're not asking them to put out any content for us. We're just crossing our fingers and hoping that they have a good Saturday night stays within the room. So, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely do the same as a minor league team. We have quite a few younger guys. We definitely put them through a coaching session at the beginning of the season to make sure they know what is and isn't appropriate. One of the things we do when we actually recruit players in to play for us is we actually look at their character a little bit. We won't really aim for guys that have big character issues. That's part of the market that we're in, but that's also the type of team that we're trying to put together. So we're lucky in the fact that our guys are great about it. Now we do ask them from time to time, like, be advocates for the team. Like, we're still trying to build our brand here. So from time to time they will, you know, retweet us and take part in our kind of things. But they want the attention as much as we do. So a lot of times they're very happy to get on board with it. And we have yet to have to scold anyone. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with amateurs in our situation. It's really not an appropriate ask for us to use them as brand ambassadors, in my opinion. But when they do tweet something that's on brand, or, you know, Trayvon was great during the postseason, we would retweet him. I think, like DJ just said, they want the exposure just as much. They want that check mark. So I think they get a kick out of being amplified on our platforms. We do same thing, media coaching at the beginning of the year. Basically, here's what not to say in a press conference, here's what not to tweet, you know, show them examples of things that have gotten people in hot water. Those kind of things, you just kind of do what you can, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with college kids, so sometimes there's some wild cards out there. I mean, it is what it is.
All right, thank you guys. Give a round of applause for our Thank you. Make sure you attend all of the other sessions. well, I'm really outgoing, so this will just be really fun and easy. So my name's Cindy. I am the community director for Yelp here in Cincinnati. Most people call me Cincy Cindy, easy to remember, so feel free to introduce yourself afterwards. I'll be moderating the panel today, and I'm so honored to be asked to do this. So my job is to connect people to great local businesses. So when I saw who the panel was, I was so excited because I've worked with everyone here. So I'm really honored to be here today, and thanks so much for Emily and the team at UC for having me. And if you'll just go down the line and introduce yourself and say what you guys do, and then we'll get started.
Cool. Hey guys, Brendan Crowley. I work at Ryan Guy's Brewery. I'm our social media manager, so basically Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. And I also do most of our written content, so our blog, our newsletter. I've been there about 7 months. I'm originally from New York. Graduated from Georgetown in Washington, D.C. last May. So pretty young, just getting back on a college campus. Yeah, really excited to be here.
My name's Tim Philpott, and I might be the oldest one in the room, which I maybe knew was going to happen. I'm on the marketing team at Graders, and I have the great privilege of selling ice cream from a family that makes really good ice cream. So our national marketing program, 46 states, 6,500 grocery stores, 50 scoop shops. I came here to actually learn from these three, so I'm anxious to talk about social media and answer questions about great ice cream.
Hello, my name is Maria Daney. I am the social media coordinator for the Cincinnati Museum Center. For those of you who don't know the Museum Center, hopefully you do, we are the beautiful historic Art Deco building near downtown. We hold 3 museums, a children's museum, a history museum, a science museum. We also have an Omnimax theater. And we're currently going under a huge restoration project. So just at the moment, our children's museum, our special exhibit hall is open. So if you haven't come to us, please come.
And a greater scoop shop.
Yes, and our recording.
I'm Jen Tan. I'm the public relations manager, and I also am the social media manager for Newport Aquarium. Get to hang out with penguins every day, touch sharks, take our ambassador animals to local and regional TV stations. So it's a lot of fun to share that with our community, and also proud to say we were just nominated as one of the top 10 best aquariums in the country by USA Today and readers who voted for us. So that's really excited to be able to say that now.
Awesome. All fun people, all fun jobs up here. Okay, so with the theme of the week being unfiltered views, the first question here is, how do you portray your brand in an authentic way? So how important is authenticity in a world right now where everything is picture perfect? And I'd like to start off with Maria on this question. I think you have a little bit of a different perspective. Obviously, beer is pretty authentic, ice cream is pretty authentic, but I'm interested to hear from both of you guys what you think, kind of your strategy on that, on portraying authenticity.
Sure. So with our brand, we really try to spark dialogue, and we do that in a few ways by asking questions within our posts and using really good images to kind of tell its own story along with the caption. During our restoration, we have quite a challenge as to kind of communicate to the community and to our guests what's open, what's not open, why they should continue to come to the building. So with that, we try to be as open and honest about what's happening with the building. People are curious in general, but they also want to know kind of what their tax money is going to and what's being fixed and what they can expect to see when they visit. So we really just try to be open and honest, both on our website and on social media as to what they can expect to see when they come to visit.
I think that's a great answer, being transparent. You guys do a really good job of that. What about you? What about the Newport Aquarium? What about you guys?
Just to build off of that, just the same with sharing animal pictures and animals that you can experience when you come to the aquarium. Part of our brand that we just launched last year was We invite families to discover the wonder together, and that there are animals that you can see, touch, and explore while you're visiting the aquarium. So to be able to share that visually on our social media channels, and then as well as when they're visiting the aquarium, that you really are entering a whole new world, kind of like an escape from, if it's a rainy day, you can go to the aquarium and the temperature outside doesn't impact what you see in there, and there's always something new to learn and see and do at the aquarium.
I love that. Okay, next question. This is a question I have for Ryan Geist, because I follow you guys, I love you guys on social, but I curate my own content on Yelp Cincy as well, so I find that this is one that I'm finding the balance on. But how often do you guys create original content versus curating content from your community?
It's a good question. I think definitely primarily we're creating original content. We got a few guys on staff, myself, Nate, who's here, takes a lot of our photos, a couple other guys on the marketing team. It's just so fun, and we're in such a big space where we can essentially always be presented with something around us to document. Something cool is always going on. A couple weeks ago, we were just sitting at our desks, and there was all this commotion outside, and you look outside, and they're rolling in a new 240-barrel tank. And that's an $80,000 investment, and they're just rolling it on a set of wheels. So it's like, I'm going out. So there's always some sort of stimulus going on. It's always, we are not want for content,
yes,
especially around us. That being said, our product that we sell is something, our merch that we sell are things that have spread pretty quickly. We're in 4 different states now. Our merch goes all over the country, so we are constantly being flooded with user-generated content as well. So we occasionally will throw that out on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, kind of give people shout-outs. But we especially have one strand. This is Ryan Geist. It's just a hashtag we use, where we are constantly putting that out, encouraging people to do that. And I'll post a photo on like a Wednesday saying, great to see our shirt in, Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Glad it made it down south or something. And we send those people merch, kind of as an appreciation. Like, really cool that you guys thought it was awesome to share this. We like that. And people kind of just pick up on that and say, oh, wow, like, Ryan Geist appreciates what I'm doing. Maybe I'll take a shirt next time I go. So
great.
We kind of have the sporadic, oh my God, this is really cool. Someone just sent a photo, we have to share it. But then also we have that singular strand that is constantly encouraging people to think about us.
Yes. So I'd like to come back to you for the next question on creating a brand voice. But for you, we can see I can see the difference between Ryan Geist and Graders in the fact that you guys have a ton of user-generated content that you guys are constantly sharing. So can you share the flip side of how that works for your brand and why you do that?
Honestly, we do it because users tend to get better content than we can create on our own. And our brand tends to find itself in the middle of very special moments in people's lives, whether it's birthdays, whether it's weddings, whether it's just after a soccer game, people are taking their kids to the ice cream parlor. And we couldn't stage that photo any better than somebody could on their iPhone or something like that. So that our basic generated communication is on events, flavors, and goings on in the retail store, and trying to connect, maybe not totally unlike Ryan Geist, with, hey, here's somebody captured a kid with a Grater's cup, knee deep or covered with ice cream in the middle of a family moment. And like I said, we don't have the wherewithal to create all that, and our users are, in our community, is more than willing to send us all kinds of content. It's a matter of picking out and leaning into the right user-generated content versus
So we'll go into that strategy a little bit later, but Tier, that was like the cutest answer ever. I love your photos that you post with those moments, and I think that goes back to being authentic and your brand really doing a good job of that. So do you ladies have anything to add on how much you guys curate content versus using content from the community?
Yeah, so I would just like to kind of piggyback on what you said in regards to like looking for pictures that people post of you. Everyone loves to be reposted. I mean, I love to be reposted, and it's just another way to engage with your audience, because it is social media. You want to be social, and kind of using that. You have your own way that you see your company, but it's great to see kind of how others see you. and then be able to share like how they see you as opposed to like just you showcasing it.
I agree with that also. Just with so many stories that people share about visiting the aquarium, especially with something like Shark Bridge, we're getting ready to celebrate the 2 millionth crossing of Shark Bridge. So it'll be happening sometime during spring break, but people are sharing their pictures of Shark Bridge because they're joining that excitement, telling that story. And so I'll share some of those, but we have so many animals to take pictures of at the aquarium, and so many community outreaches. When we go to TV stations, there's always content happening, and we have Stingray Hideaway, the new exhibit that we're building now. So just to share the construction pictures along the way, to share, a lot of it is original content, but on Twitter and Facebook we will share and like post Instagram as well too.
Awesome, all awesome answers and very diverse. I love that. Okay, so we'll go back to tone of voice. So for you guys, how important is creating a tone of voice for your brand? And what is your brand's voice? We'll go down the line. And how importantly, or most importantly, how do you stay consistent? Because I've seen, social media specifically where someone's in charge of the brand like I am, and I could easily inject my own personality, but it's also really important to have that brand consistency, like the stream of what you were talking about. So I'd like to start off with you guys and how you created your brand tone of voice, because not only are you great in the Cincinnati market on social, but all over the world you guys are getting featured, your branding is always really consistent. So can you talk a little bit about that voice and how you maintain that consistency?
Yeah, for sure. Tone's really everything for us. I mean, this hits close to home. A lot of what I do on the day-to-day is just words. So I spend hours and hours every week. I mean, my coworkers always joke at me, it's when Brendan's like in the zone, I'll have my headphones on, I'll just be staring at my computer, hands not even on the keyboard, because I'm just trying to like formulate a sentence in my mind. Like, don't bother him when he's doing that. But it's really interesting, right? So when Rhine Guys started out, like many startups, it was just a few guys in a room. So our Instagram account was started by our founder, Brian Goulding, and there was a time when it was just him and his phone. So the tone that is used today is the same tone that Bryant was using in those early posts.
Wow,
so
super consistent.
You can go all the way back to when Bryant was posting really bad selfies at music festivals with like a Rhine Guy shirt on. But he kind of set this standard, right? So Bryant did it for a while. We had another guy come in, Luis, who recently moved back to Mexico City to work for an ice cream company, by the way, which is interesting. And Luis kind of picked up that tone, and of course he's not going to speak exactly like Brian, but the principles remain the same. So for us, keeping copy short is pretty important. Unfortunately, humans don't have great attention span, and as much as I'd love them to read all of the words I write all the time, please do. It takes a lot of time.
Yes, we will elaborate on attention spans here in a minute.
But the reality is, you're going to look at the picture, you're going to look, maybe read 4 or 5 words, and you're probably going to keep going and see what your friends are doing on vacation or something in your next post. So you want to get to the point, keep it short. We like to be funny, but not in a way that we are like really trying to be a comedian, right? We're not that funny, but we like to be interesting, quirky, whatever. We're basically just trying to express the funny stuff and kind of wackiness that is Rhine Guys and our employees.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Did you guys sit down and create like some company values that you streamline, or is there one person just maintaining that voice throughout?
We have, I think we have this, Nate's gonna laugh, so we have this, we have like an inspiration doc that Brian put together way back in the day that's basically just like a random smattering of words and pictures. It has like Kurt Vonnegut, the Nationals lyrics, shout out Cincinnati, the Nationals lyrics.
So like a mood board almost that you just kind of get that
I think
feeling.
Hemingway's on there.
What? That's awesome.
So it's kind of this weird group of different emotions that we're always trying to put out. Like, keep it funny, keep it super humble, because we all just are. Like, it's really cool that we've been successful, but like, for all of us, it's still kind of like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is going a lot faster than we thought.
Yes.
And then just like, don't take yourself too seriously, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of cool things that are happening to us, as you mentioned, but like, we're more just like, we're cool people, we're having fun, we just want to share it with you, and that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Good. Cool to see like the behind the scenes of that, because you really just only see that stream, but it's great to know that you guys execute that with the mood board, and that's really cool. So for the rest of the people on the panel, how important is creating a tone of voice, and how do you stay consistent? Do you guys have one person maintaining it, or do you have a team stream where you all throw content into it? How do you guys do that?
So for Museum Center, we, like our marketing team, while we're obviously individual people, we do try to keep a consistent brand voice. For us, we want to try to be credible. We want to kind of have a guest-centric mindset, whereas like the way we write press releases or social media posts, maybe how would a tour guide talk to you about this? And then we always also try to have an action item in the post, whether it's like click here to learn more, or if it's an engaging question for them to respond in the post.
And so at Newport Aquarium, when you ask how many people are in charge of social media, really, for the most part, it's me and one other person who helps respond to like, Facebook, because we get tons of Facebook comments 24/7. So I'm on the social media as a 24/7 job. Like even though you have your date, like there is no 9 to 5 really. You're answering social media, responding to questions all hours of the night. But we do, to maintain that voice, you do limit how many people are posting, and to stick with that voice, it's family friendly. We're sharing a picture, we're educating, engaging visitors and guests and people who are looking to come and visit. And then also we're always trying to keep a conservation message in there. So if we post something, cute baby penguin is always a good go-to. Or you see an African penguin and people like think of Mr. Popper's penguins and you want to have a pet penguin. I'm sidetracking here, but a fun fact about penguins that you'll learn on a penguin encounter is that they poop every 10 to 15 minutes.
Wow.
So you wouldn't want to really have a pet penguin at home because you're constantly feeding them, and they eat like the most food out of any animal at the aquarium. So always trying to share education about each different animal, and then a conservation message to maintain that voice throughout social media and blog posts.
So this is a question that kind of goes off of that, but I get this question a lot. How are you always online? How are you always responding? Do you guys, and maybe you've answered this already, but do you have a library of content ready to go when things are slow, or are you just authentically posting? So the tools that you're using, do you have a scheduler, or are you just authentically responding and posting?
So we use Hootsuite for scheduling. I do anyways, just for scheduling Twitter and Instagram, but it's not really user friendly with Instagram because you still get the push notifications, so I'm still sending it through my phone. But Twitter is also a lot of organic posts. If we're at a TV station or out at an event, it's just live tweeting, or I would normally be tweeting while I'm at an event right now. Facebook is, we just schedule through Facebook. And it's content, we do have a content calendar where we plan out through the year if it's a specific, like Penguin Awareness Day or Shark Week is really big in June or July. So we'll plan ahead with blog posts and items to go with the themed animal holidays or something to go along with events that are happening at the aquarium. So for the Shark Bridge, we've been planning this out for a couple weeks now. For Stingray Hideaway, we know that's since January when we announced it, we've been planning out posts.
Okay, so kind of a mixture of both. There's no like secret tool out there. Does anyone use anything crazy, or are we all kind of in the same boat on this?
I think though what you said, Jen, is you got to have a plan for posting because you don't know what's going to happen. And maybe nothing happens. You got to make something happen, but then you have to have the flexible process to lean into something that does happen.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to post something that's ignorant to what's going on in the day, because your fans will kill you. That you're just not paying attention to what's going on.
Okay, so on that note, what is your strategy for reaching your target audience? Each one of you has a very different target audience, so I'd like to see the strategy and what platform is working best, because there's so many. I know we're like Facebook's dead, but now it has Facebook Live. Like, how are you guys dealing with reaching your target audience, and what platform works best for you?
One way that we, so I love Instagram. I love pictures. and I have been trying to, Facebook I would say and Instagram are two big places that we go. Instagram is great for obviously for pictures, and pictures are great because they kind of tell a story, and everyone kind of reads their own story from the picture, so it kind of tells a message in a variety of ways. And for Facebook, like we do, especially for like boosting a post, we are able to target specific people. If it's for like young professionals events, then we're able to kind of target exactly where we want that post to go based on age or what the event's about, so their interests and that stuff.
I'd say we have very different, if you grew up in Cincinnati, or if you grew up in Columbus, you're familiar with the Grader's Scoop Shop, you've been in there, you know what that is. If you're outside of our Scoop Shop footprint, which a lot of people are, you have a pint on a grocery shelf. And so families don't tend to buy that as much, so our target is really different where we don't have a Scoop Shop. And in Cincinnati, we've been here forever. Everybody is kind of a Grader's potential. And so geo-targeting, things like that get really messy because we're much more millennial outside of the Scoop Shops where we can convince somebody to pay $6 or $7 for a pint of ice cream, which with another pint for $4 on the other end of the aisle, and telling that story to a different kind of foodie, put something that we can appeal to with the ice cream. And then within our Scoop Shop is talking to a family that's coming there after a soccer game, or talking to, any number of one of my favorite things to do is go into one of our Scoop Shops on a Sunday afternoon, and you tend to see an older customer in there, couples sharing a sundae and things like, is this crazy? Like going there on a Saturday night, you see young people, and so the targeting is really a challenge.
And that's something you
because of
guys
what
are
we
always
built.
working on?
Oh my gosh, and failing at and relearning and trying different things.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's talk about how you guys measure success, because I would like to know, is it, when you post, you're looking to sell tickets, or you're looking to get clicks back to your website? Is it always about getting people to your website? Is it about selling, sales, or just in general building brand awareness? Because there's so many things you can do that you can't measure versus things that are a direct click back and a ticket sale. So when you guys build your strategies, what is the ultimate goal for you, and how do you measure that success?
I think for us, so this is kind of counterintuitive, but I found that creating content that our employees and the people closest to what we're actually making, the physical product, our beer that we're putting out in cans, like if the employees are appreciative of the content we're putting out, because it's a family, it's growing fast, but it's very small, and it's still a pretty young operation. But if the employees are coming up to me and being like, hey, that was amazing, like I really like that, or if the employees are getting featured, like, oh my god, thank you so much for highlighting the packaging team or something.
Yeah.
I find that is usually a really good indication of what our wider audience is going to appreciate.
So more of like a behind the scenes kind of thing.
Yeah, and one of the kind of unwritten rules we have at Rheingeist, which again, this is sort of counterintuitive when you're thinking of a sales-forward organization, is we just don't ask people ever to do anything.
I love hearing that. Yeah, so just authenticity straight to the end, and then that just builds sales for you guys.
Yeah, it breaks down to like the sentence structure. Like I'm really never gonna say like, buy beer now or something.
Right,
Like,
and so many others do, so it's interesting to see that perspective.
Because you kind of end up talking to someone like their friend, or
Yeah.
kind of someone you meet at a bar. And you're like, yeah, this beer's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a cool can design, and we're really proud to have made it.
Wow, that's crazy that you guys can still have that level of success just by being authentic. I think that really says a lot. So what about the rest of the panel here? Are you guys looking to drive ticket sales? I'd love to hear from you guys who actually have members and things like that. You mentioned a call to action before, Maria, going back and making sure you have a call to action in there. When you measure success, does your marketing team sit down and say, okay, we did this campaign, we got this X amount out of it, or is it on the flip side where you're just being authentic and you naturally are building customers that way?
Well, I think it's a combination of everything. Like, the ultimate goal is to sell tickets, is to sell beer, ice cream, fish. Fish. Yeah. So that's I think the underlying goal, regardless if you're seeing it or not. And just a matter of how each organization does that and the way that you're trying to portray that. I mean, yes, we want to sell out an event, or we want people to come in the doors, but it's once they're in there, we want to educate them about whatever we happen to be educating them about. So it's just, I think, a combination of all of it.
I mean, what we try to do, I think, is inform, inspire, and invite. Maybe not urging somebody, but people need to know, people love to know, hey, strawberry chocolate chip is out. And then if you get a great picture of strawberry chocolate chip and there's somebody eating it, and then just invite them to be a part of it. Hey, I'm not going to beat you over the head to get the ice cream, but I want you to feel invited. I want you to feel like you're part of the community and we're inviting you in.
I love that.
So but if you're missing one of those, and sometimes you don't feel like you can be a part of it. So we just want, how can you be a part of it? Whether it is a scoop shop, whether it is a pint on the shelf, or whether it is a new retail partner that we're going into Wegmans, and there's a lot of crazy Wegmans fans, and how do you just be a part of that now? So I think we have found, if you don't invite people, make them feel like they can be a part of it somehow, and it's not over the head beating them, but make them feel like this is a way you can be involved. And
what were the 3 words you said? You said
inform, inspire, and invite.
I love that. People that are hashtagging, that's a good one.
I have 3 more words to add to that.
Yeah, more words, all the words.
Engage, excite, and inspire. Just because we are sharing, at Newport Aquarium, we are sharing the wonders of the aquatic world. So we're always trying to invite people to explore, and the other one is discover the wonder is one of the main hashtags we use, and then see, touch, explore. But there's just always something new to see and learn.
Great answers, everybody. I'm inspired. I'm like ready to dive into that strawberry and the head of the current.
If we're doing sharing of 3-word phrases,
yes.
Let's do it.
I would be remiss if I didn't share what my boss says all the
We
time.
need a plug. Let's hear it.
Close your ears if you don't like curse words, but do cool shit.
Do cool shit.
That's
I love it.
That's written on my desk on a post-it note.
Awesome. Well, we'll get that tweet out right away.
Or maybe don't. Yeah.
Or just you want to
cool
see.
Pete.
Do cool.
That's so funny.
Let's see who
Where
tweets
words,
that.
Rich Grader gave me a post-it that says indulge people's smiles. And like here, in my bag, I didn't bring my bag, but it's like funny things that you get over your career that you're like, I'm gonna hold on to that because that's kind of a cool thing
I
to
love
have.
that.
And
Yeah. Stick
remember
that
redoing
post-it
that.
on there and just
So-
constantly be reminded. I love that. Okay, so we'll turn over to how important is video when it comes to your brand strategy. I know with my team of community managers, we've been talking so much about video. It's 70% of internet traffic right now. In 2019, it's going to be 80%. This is huge. I think over my career of 6 years, I started our Instagram account, and now we're moving towards video. So. What is your guys' strategy and how are you going to deal with that new trend? Are you already on top of it, or are you getting with your teams and trying to find a new way to incorporate that? And I think we'll start with Ryan Geist here only because I was inspired to write this question based on your Oktoberfest video of people in no clothing and like weird Oktoberfest outfits on bikes. Did any of you guys see that? They were like going around town riding bikes. There were probably like 10 men in these outfits, and I just couldn't believe it was huge. People were sharing it, and I also thought it was interesting that you guys had so many different pictures and video. The whole campaign was really wrapped up. Are you guys consistently doing video campaigns like that, or how are you handling that?
Yeah, so that was the Franz video series for our Franz Toberfest event, which is like our kind of more edgy spin on Oktoberfest. I am in all of those videos. That was quite a week. I believe
People
that was.
are checking that out, look it
I
up.
believe that was my 3rd week of work too, so it was kind of like dive in, right?
That was quite a production though. Did you guys sit down and write a script, or was it organic?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we planned that out. Yeah, we had like a general list of ideas, or like 10 places around Cincinnati we wanted to hit on the red bikes. If you haven't seen the video, basically it's 10 guys with like very scantily clad Oktoberfest costumes, and we're all on red bikes, and we just ride around Cincinnati. We had like Nate on the back of a bike filming. We had our other guy JR and like somebody's trunk filming. We just rode around and kind of like took pictures and videos and stuff. It was one of those things where we planned it kind of loosely, but it just like the content really came out strong. I think that's just a good thing to know in general is like, you can have a really good plan. Like, I probably spent a couple of hours on multiple days planning that. If the content's not good, like, you don't have to share it. Like,
Yeah.
you can kind of just take the loss.
Moving forward, that was a great one. Are you guys still doing videos like that? How are you going to utilize this new trend of video?
Yeah, I mean, the long, big videos, we've probably done 2 of them. We have the downtown music video, I don't know if anyone's seen that. And we also had the Franz video that you mentioned. Those long ones are not going to come out that often, right? It takes a ton of preparation. A lot of those are basically side projects that we kind of think of that would be fun, so it's based on capacity. Video strategy in general, though, this is something we think about a lot because we do put videos out a lot and we kind of go with that quirky, funny type idea. Shorter is revealing itself to be better, again, with the attention span thing. If you have a 45-second video and it doesn't start being funny until 30 seconds,
Drops your audience.
Yeah, and it's brutal. I mean, we put stuff out that like we think is hysterical, and then I'm kind of monitoring engagement, and I'm like, people aren't even watching the video.
Right.
Because they're looking, they're like, I don't get it, gone.
Yeah.
So keep it short. No, I always think funny is better because funny, or just something that's going to touch someone emotionally, right? If it's like a family eating ice cream or something, that's going to resonate because most people have a family who likes to eat ice cream. Yeah, let's go, right? Or if we have a wacky, crazy Franz video, and the first thing you're seeing is 10 dudes rolling down without shirts, you're probably going to be like, all right, let's see where this goes.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Is anyone else utilizing video content?
I mean, they have a great example of video, but I mean, I could just speak for at Newport Aquarium. We put together, we use video all the time. Just looking back at last year's specific campaigns, we put together a really fun video on the mermaids when they came. So it was a fun video looking at a day in the life of a mermaid at Newport Aquarium because they swim into town up the Ohio River in September and they're here for mermaid season. So to see the fun behind the scenes videos of mermaids, or we feature our divers and use a lot of fun GoPro video that they shoot underwater when they're diving. We featured videos on a day in the life of a biologist. So following them around to some behind the scenes opportunities like preparing the food that they're going to feed the sharks or cleaning the tanks and things that you normally wouldn't think about because as a visitor or a guest you see the tank in front of you but you don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. So that's where video really, it helps share that experience with people and they could feel like they're part of what's going on there and it kind of takes them behind the tank.
I love that. That was actually our next question is what components of the videos that you've made resonates most? So is it something funny? Is it something factual? Like we're kind of all trying to figure this out together as a community here. So I'm just interested in your strategy on that.
We use a little, I mean, we use both. If you look at our YouTube page, like the mermaid video was really fun. The way it was shot, it was a fun, like office type, the way it was shot, like looking at her straight on and we're wheeling her down the hallway with her tail because, so kind of keeping the magic of a mermaid in her tail. Because when she's out of the water, she sprinkles magic dust and she keeps the tail when she's out of the water. So,
yes.
So we're not giving away anything, but we're also keeping it magical for any kids who might see the post on Facebook or on our YouTube page. So we do have a nice balance between fun videos and then also the educational videos where we highlight a biologist or we put together a video for Shark Week and throughout the video you see different fun facts about sharks and the different type of sharks that you could see and even the sharks that you could touch when you're at the aquarium. So just a good combination of both.
Awesome. Anything else to add?
The videos that have been successful for us have both been planned and structured right off beforehand, as well as kind of in the moment. So for example, when we had a Da Vinci exhibit, we did a Brew Talks, which was our version of Drunk History. And so that was our marketing manager talking to the audience about Da Vinci stuff. We also did a video with Newport Aquarium about Da Vinci, and we related to the scuba suit in our exhibit, and then talked about modern day scuba suits. And then another example of kind of like in the moment video, we were just in the opening day parade, and our next exhibit is Star Wars and the Power of Costume. And so we were marching with stormtroopers. And while we're waiting for the parade to start, there was a very just like in the moment situation where I had my phone ready and this little girl walked up to the stormtroopers and started to interact with them. She would like almost do like a Simon Says, and she would touch her head and they would touch their head. And
wow, that's awesome.
She would spin around and they would spin around, and it's becoming like one of our most popular videos.
That's great. So just be ready for video. That's leading into my next question. There's so many ways to go live now. This is something that is on the cusp. So we have Snapchat, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, Insta Stories, Periscope. Is anyone utilizing those well? And how do you see a return on investment for that? Because sometimes, it just goes away. Sometimes you're monitoring those views. So I'd like to just hear strategies on that new frontier of just going live.
Yeah, we use IG stories a lot. We're pretty down with that. Our Instagram has a pretty big following. And we just find that's a pretty easy way to reach a lot of people at once. I just like the way it's integrated with the platform. It's really cool. You talked about return. Like, I'm just always amazed at how many views those get.
Yeah, versus the posts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we can post really just anything, and it's always because people it's kind of like the first thing you see when you open Instagram. You're just gonna click through really fast, and people will end up watching the view count go up. So that's cool. Going live in general is still something I think a lot of people are trying to figure out. Makes me pretty nervous, right? Just because you want to keep it live and fresh, but in the beer world at least, and we've seen some bad live stuff. where you put it on and there could be a brewery that has a couple 100,000 followers, and it goes live and it's gonna give a lot of people notifications and they're gonna start watching. You're not ready for that. People are gonna remember. I remember watching a live video where Nate and I were watching it, and they were playing with yeast samples, which is a really fascinating thing if you're really into beer. I think that's awesome. But essentially, it just looks like this. And the woman was talking, and she was trying to, this is this type of yeast, and then they're interviewing one of the brewers, and he was throwing out word, and I closed it. I was like, I feel all uncomfortable for them. So it's like, if you're gonna do that, I think it's very powerful. You get a crazy audience, you can do something really memorable, but that's the kind of thing that there's no love, you got planned.
I think the only successful, we haven't done it that much, but for Yelp Cincy, we did a 3 a.m. tour at Holtman's where we actually lived the life of a baker. So we went in at 3 a.m. and saw them, hand cutting the donuts, everything like that. And it was bizarre. I thought, okay, we'll get some people at 3 a.m., but it really they can download the live video off Facebook and share it that way. So I think that was a good way that we were skeleton planning it out, and that we knew everything was gonna look awesome no matter what. So that was a situation where it worked really well for us. But as far as, just throwing it out there to you guys, how are you utilizing the live features?
We have a couple of really good examples of using Facebook Live. Last year we had a NASCAR driver in town, and we kind of partnered with Kentucky Speedway. Brendan Gaughan came, and he is a certified scuba diver, and so he's done this the past couple of years. So I did a Facebook Live with him behind the scenes getting into our acclimation tank. So just with as big of a social media following that NASCAR has in general, we were engaging that audience. So offering that behind the scenes view, again, opportunity for people. So he was getting into the acclimation tank, and then we went downstairs while he was in the tank doing a guest dive with our dive safety officers standing by watching. Another one with our big announcement in January, because we were kind of teasing ahead on social media building up to what our new exhibit would be. So in January we did the whole announcement on Facebook Live, as well as with the local media there for the announcement, but that was one of our biggest Facebook Live posts.
Yeah, so a question on that, and maybe you don't have the exact numbers, that's okay, but the live, because Facebook is pushing that to the front, are you seeing a better return on investment for that, or those other mermaid videos and things that you were talking about earlier?
I could give a good example because we actually analyzed the attendance numbers for mermaids. So looking at the way our attendance was projecting leading into mermaids, and then when we posted that video, our attendance did go up. I mean, we could correlate it to say, oh, this great video is what brought them in, but still it mermaids themselves, and it's a popular event, and it's a popular season for people to come in general.
That's awesome. Okay, so Moving on to, this is the one that I'm very passionate about because this is essentially my job, partnering and connecting people to great local businesses. So I am partnering with probably 10 to 20 businesses each month to showcase something cool that's going on in Cincinnati. So that is my job in a nutshell. But for you guys, you may not always be partnering with local businesses. How do you feel about partnering with local businesses? Is it the more the merrier, especially for ice cream, or are you like, whoa, competitor, pump the brakes here? How do you do that? How do you manage that strategy?
Well, I think for us, again, the family is very protective of the brand that their ancestors built. So we are probably very conservative just on a lot of things we've been talking about with video that scares the crap out of us live, because we don't want to. But in terms of partnership, we tend to find ourselves in partnerships with like-minded people, family business. We had the Yelp folks into our bakery, which is awesome. We always talk about ice cream, but we have a fabulous bakery. And we had this thing with Braxton Brewery that kind of blew up on us.
Have you guys heard of that? It's like some kind of beer. I don't know. Yeah. Yes, everyone on the planet has heard of it.
I know, right? It's I knew Brendan was going to be here. I didn't want to, head down that rabbit hole too much.
How many people tried that beer?
That was
really?
It really was crazy. That's one of those things that back to leaning into it. That happened. It was a family business. A couple of guys, that started this brewery, and they really appealed to the greater boys who have a family business too. And it just kind of happened. And then we hoped to get about 1 million impressions on it. Maybe make something happen. And we got 300 million.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, they actually brewed a black raspberry chip beer. And it was absolutely insane. It was everywhere. So I love what you're saying about that community partnership really just took off. That was a great example of a time.
And it was February 3rd. I mean, I'll remember it forever because the press release was the 24th and we had a whole lot of things planned for February and then it was
take it off. Take it off because this is
we're leaning into
it.
that and oh my gosh, it's still crazy. I still get, and then we went to Oreos. So it's just,
yeah.
I don't know.
So you partner when it makes sense for you guys that you can elevate both brands.
We're both in the same, because we have a partnership with UDF that a lot of people don't know. I mean, that seems like a competitor, but we both have big freezers. We're both in town, and we have different kinds of ice cream. So where it makes sense for the family business, we partner.
Yeah, I think that Cincinnati is actually very different than a lot of other cities as far as helping other people out and being very, the more the merrier. We're helping each other, we're being authentic. So what about the rest of you guys? How do you strategically pick partners, or are you we're doing our own thing?
So for the Museum Center, community partners have always been important to us, but during the restoration, it's even more so now. Because our science and our history museums are temporarily closed, there is nothing in those areas. And I don't know if you guys have been to CBG or UC even, or any of the public libraries, but a lot of our artifacts are on the community. So if you have been to CBG recently, you might have noticed the giant mastodon skeleton or other Ice Age skeletons. Those are museums, and we partnered with CBG and UC and 6 other community partners to build a relationship, and it's kind of like another opportunity. We call the thing Curate My Community, and so we are literally providing our artifacts into the community. And one really cool social media comment that someone shared on CBG in our page in regards to the Ice Age animals was I stepped off an airplane and into a museum, and that's been a really
That's awesome. It's almost like you're doing a different job now. It's those times when you get put in those positions that you're thinking, wow, we should have probably been doing this anyways. I've seen those. I think that's amazing what you're doing. What an interesting approach to still maintaining that following. I think you guys are doing a really good job at that.
We at Newport Aquarium, we're really trying to build on our community partnerships. We have a really good partnership with Cincinnati Reds, where during baseball season we'll go out to maybe 2 or 3 of the games on Sundays. It's for the kids' Third and Learn. So we'll bring an ambassador animal out to the ballpark and have sort of a meet and greet set up at the kids' diamond out in the kids section. So that's a good partnership that we've established and maintained with the Reds, and then also with Skyline Chili. With Gator Alley last year, we renamed it it's Skyline Chili Gator Alley. And we did a fun little kickoff with a 14-foot long cheese coney because Mighty Mike, our big keystone animal in Gator Alley, he's 14-foot long American alligator. So we set up a fun table with the 14-foot long coney to let people know that's how big he is.
That's super creative. You guys have a lot of crazy minds over there. Or is it just you said it was mainly you, or you have a team of people throwing ideas out there?
We do have a good team. We have a good team of people at the aquarium.
That's such a unique idea. I love that.
And just to build off of something that Maria had mentioned earlier, because you asked if we have if we look at each other's competitors, and really it is a partnership because you look at Museum Center or the zoo and the aquarium is really family destinations. So we teamed up with for the Da Vinci exhibit. They reached out to us, and a lot of people don't realize that Da Vinci created the first scuba gear. So we teamed up and had their media relations person come out and a couple of the videographers who came out and shot video and interviewed our main dive safety officer about the creation of scuba gear and how modern day scuba gear works compared to that. And it was really nice because we were able to share it on social media. Across all channels.
These were interesting answers for me. It sounds like you guys are saying that community partners are really important to you, and I wasn't so sure on that answer. So I think these were some of the most fascinating answers for me. Moving on to contests. How do you guys feel about running contests on social and asking for content from the community? There's some people that do it really, really well and organically, and then there's some that's, like post this and receive a gift card. How do you guys, do you run contests, and when is an example of a time where a contest took off or a contest really just fell flat? Or is no one running contests whatsoever?
I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, go ahead, you have like so many interesting answers.
So we have a really fun contest happening right now. It actually just ended yesterday. When I mentioned Sharkbridge earlier for the 2 millionth crossing, I launched this contest last Thursday, and it was all organic. We didn't pay to boost it, and it has a reach right now of up to 67,000 people.
Wow.
And what we did with the post, it was like 4 or 5 pictures of Sharkbridge, and asking people to share your favorite Sharkbridge story and tag a friend.
Is this on Facebook?
It's on, yes, okay. It's on Facebook. So share your favorite Sharkbridge story, tag a friend, and you can be entered for a chance to win 4 tickets to the aquarium, and maybe you could be one of the 2 millionth across.
I love that you circled it back, yes. So you could get the chance.
Yes,
it wasn't
so
just.
You could be. So okay. That's why. So we started it last week. It wrapped up yesterday. We'll announce the winner today, and then sometime over the next, during spring break, over the next week or two, the 2 millionth crossing will happen. So just the interaction with that post alone, how many times it was shared, I think at last count there were 700 and something comments on the post alone. So
that's
just
great.
And it's exciting to see that compared to like an actual boosted post. I mean, this took off more than a boosted post.
So contests are working really well for you. Anybody else?
We don't run a lot of traditional contests like directly through our social media, though to reach a very important group in our social media, which are, I'm gonna say beer nerds, basically, like kind of like
you can say it.
Next level beer fans who are probably less interested in maybe an event we're holding and more interested in the hot profile of our new beer. And it's a very large audience.
Yeah.
We do a homebrew competition every year, which is a really cool opportunity for guys kind of working on their stovetop on recipes. So basically recipes are submitted in different categories, and we're promoting this super aggressively through social media, highlighting previous year's winners.
Cool, so you're running a contest kind of like offline or on your website or something and bringing them back.
Yeah, and then the winner really gets a great run online, which influences next year. So
yeah.
Basically, if you win, you get to come to the brewery and brew with our brewing team, and then it gets put into bombers, so like 20 big bottles, and then that's packaged and sold in stores.
Yeah,
so and it says homie, and it's gonna say like your name on it, all that stuff. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Like an interesting tradition or an interesting route to go for contests. I like that, taking it offline, but then still sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Any other examples on contests or no? Who can eat the most ice cream? Is that one? I feel like it needs to be.
No, I'm always amazed at what people will do. We ran a video contest last summer, and we sat around thinking, would people make videos eating our ice cream and submit them to winning year's worth of ice cream? And it seems silly, like why would you do it? and we have 40 entries of like films, like,
Yeah.
and it was crazy. And then it got competitive, and people were, when are you voting? And I didn't, mine was better. It was just I don't know that it went great. I mean, it was engaging, but
A great
it was
learning
like too many
opportunity.
almost conflict. The
Yeah.
person was, didn't win, and
Yeah.
so it's like, it's ice cream, people. Come on, it's fun. This is
That's
fun, right?
That's a really
So
good
it's a risk
learning
of kind of doing. So we tend to do more of this. Share, your family picture, and we'll send you a free pint or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a contest, but it's a reward for doing stuff
Yeah.
and engaging. And you said merch out. I mean, we don't. It's just
People are kind of crazy
Yeah.
online. I think that's something.
So, yeah,
if you spend a lot of time in the trenches with that, like, you got to be careful of
Yeah.
how much voice you give to folks.
Yeah, so that was going to be my last question before we open it up to Q&A. Any really funny or fun social media stories in your career that you'd like to share, for better or for worse? I'm sure you guys have so much content coming to you, so many different things. Or have you guys ever done something and it completely just bombed and you got in trouble, or what? Any good stories?
We did a video once. Describe your dad in one word. And it was for Dad Day. It's one of our favorite events. Everyone dresses in plaid. It's BYOP, bring your own plaid, bring your own dad. Like, we did it basically as a joke the first year, and like,
Took off.
a bunch of guys and girls showed up with it. Now we have a dad dress up contest, all this stuff. But we created this video where we interviewed all our employees, and the question that came away with the best answers was describe your dad in one word. Because like, these people were saying these awesome things, like, oh, loving, caring, blah, blah, blah. So I put it out on Instagram, and I knew right away that we were in trouble, because like, the first few comments were just very like
Negative?
yeah, like, I mean, like,
terrible human.
like awful, or like absent. Like, and I was like, I turned to Nate, and I was like, did you? He was like, I know. And it was like, do we? And then like, it got kind of nice, but then like, there was this bad mix, and like, that's a big thing. If you have something that doesn't go well, people realize they have a platform for saying even more ridiculous things than usual. So I was,
Wow.
that was a tricky day.
And how did you guys handle that as a team? Because it had great intentions, obviously.
Yeah.
Did you respond to it, or were you just
No.
kind of like, we're slowly getting this away?
You gotta let it ride, right? I mean, if negativity happens, I mean, I always ask myself, why? Like, why would you do that? It's
Yeah.
a public forum, but people have the right to comment what they want on social media. If it ever gets really nasty, and if it ever gets out of hand, you can just delete it.
Yeah.
We generally try not to do that. Or my favorite thing to do is if criticism comes to us, which does come for our beer, I'll reach out directly and open up a dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, you brew too many pale ales. So my favorite thing to do is I respond, I'm like, hey man, like, I hear you. We actually brewed 14 to be exact last year, but we also brewed 86 other beers.
Right.
We got these 14 on tap that aren't pale ales. Is there something I could recommend?
Shutting down the trolls.
And I'm not, it's not making it about like who's better.
Yeah.
But like, usually they're like,
Informational.
wow, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll try that beer.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Cool.
That's a great example, the dad example. Anyone else have any funny social media stories that either went really well or really bad?
We just had a thing a couple weeks ago with these Oreos. I mean, did people see those? Somebody posted in the junk food aisle that we made black raspberry Oreos and posted a package. They photoshopped the package, looked exactly like them. And so our phones blew up, literally almost at the same time. Everybody that knew somebody that worked at Grader got an email or a text or a message that said, dude, where's this for real? Our customer service said, we're getting calls. People are calling Meijer and Kroger and all these places. Where do I find these damn things? It's like, wait a minute. Like,
Did you get a call from Oreo at all?
no, the junk food aisle blogger said that he's done a number of them and never gotten a call from Oreo. But I called him. I'm like, dude, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And he pulled some stuff off our site to use. But we ended up on TV. We made recipes we made all this black raspberry stuff. We're like, you could do a ton of stuff with our black raspberry. We sell black raspberry syrup in the store. So
yeah,
it was kind of fun.
What
and
was your response to it? Did you acknowledge it or no?
We did. I mean, it was a spoof, but
Yeah.
nobody hears that it was a spoof. Everybody continues to hear that it's
They
real,
stole their
and
calling.
it's still alive. Like, people are now still encountering it. So, again, it's fun,
Yeah.
but it's distracting. Like, at some point, it's like
You're not
and
selling
disappointing.
those.
You're disappointing people. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's terrible. I hate you because you don't do that, and you get trolled like we didn't start it, we didn't,
Yeah.
it's not our fault. Like,
But you are responding to it, yeah. Those are great examples. I'm glad we did that. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. I want to just open it up and see if anyone has any questions.
I think one of you mentioned towards the beginning of this session that you create content that you make sure that your employees are proud of. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So what are your strategies of engaging your own employees to share your social media content so that it gets a more organic, broad reach?
Yeah. Our employees are pretty passionate about the brand, so I don't do much advertising for ourselves because usually they're just so amped about sharing. I mean, because again, right, like you have everybody in the brewery is doing one little piece that's basically all going into like a can that you're putting on the shelf. And every time like we see someone buy that, and if I see someone in the bar reading the back of the can, like I'm fired up.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like that is the product of so many people's input. It's fantastic. So I don't think I don't have to be that intentional about like, hey, do you think you could share this? So that kind of usually takes care of itself. However, I will say, making social media as democratic as possible in terms of ideas within your organization is really big. That's something we do a lot. I talk to people all the time about everything. What do you think about this? What do you feel about this? I remember our founder said to me once, like you kind of have to be, in a social media position, you have to kind of be a reporter, like eyes and ears to the brewery. If something's happening, you're there. Even if like our head brewer doesn't want me in the sensory lab until it's after 4 p.m. If something's going on, I'm gonna like find myself in there.
Yeah.
Like you always have to be on the ground. The more you talk to people and the more they take it as a given that like, oh yeah, he's a social media guy, like he has to be here. Like it creates awareness for what we're doing and people kind of feel compelled to share.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
This one's for Brendan. Where's your office at? Do you get to sit up in that cool area above the tap room?
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone's ever gone on a tour, Run Guys. Basically, you have the front stairs where it's like, where am I going? I'm going up 4 staircases. I'm kind of scared. Walk in the brewery. Oh my god. In the back, where like those tanks are, to the right we have offices. My desk overlooks fermentation tanks. So it's very strange. I'm starting to get used to it, but it's
One more question? Or we have a question in the back?
Thanks for everything you've been sharing. So I work at admissions over here at UC, and there was a post yesterday, and I'm wondering, when do you reply back when it's negative? It says shame on UC admissions. The women's basketball team shouldn't be playing St. Ursula basketball, high school basketball arena. Does everyone know that? So men's is playing at NKU, women's is playing at high school gymnasium.
Oh.
Yeah. So, do I comment back, or do I just let it go? It shouldn't be to UC admissions, it should be to US.
I can actually chime in on that. You guys, you don't know Yelp. Okay, so there's a lot of things coming in, especially on our Twitter. I think my strategy, and I tell business owners this, I do reputation management with business owners. I think the most important thing is if it's exactly to your point earlier, if it's something that you can actually fact check or correct, I do that because they're like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that, like I'm embarrassed. But if it's something where they're just being mean or like not cool, I don't really think it's worth your time. But if there's any time that there's a situation where, even if you're being funny and could kind of like correct or ease the situation, I try to do it. But if it's gonna lead you down a rabbit hole where then other people are gonna chime in, it's just gonna get crazy, I wouldn't. But if there's a reason why that's happening, I try to always respond right away and be timely about it. Does that help at all?
I'm not sure. Does anyone else have this issue? I don't know if I should reply back or not at all. That's basically. I'm going to reply back. Well, how? Because I agree with them.
Is there?
I agree with them. It is terrible.
There's a marketing guy, I forget his name, but he has like his slogan is hug your haters. So he always says like, you know, you can turn a negative into a positive.
So how would you turn that into positive?
You can just say thanks for the feedback and forward the along.
Yeah, like acknowledging them, maybe would shut them down.
I personally would look into why. Is it because they don't have attendance? Say, you know, it is a shame that they are not at a major facility. If we had more support for them, maybe we can get them there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah, question over here.
For graders, how how do you handle the Facebook and Instagram when you have, just in Ohio, what, 50 locations, or Cincinnati? Does each store handle their Facebook?
We curate all the neighborhood pages for
Okay.
all the stores have their own Facebook page.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and we curate those, but they're not all that different at this time. They're set up to be different, but we're still trying to get a handle on how they can be all really connected to the community. We don't do that very well.
Do we have time for one more question? I have a question. Is there someone else coming into this room?
We have lunch after this.
Oh, okay, well, cool. I have a question. My job as a whole is Yelp branding, but then deeper is engaging our core group. Like you said, your beer aficionados, those people you want to be engaging. So my time is spent reaching new people to get them to come out to events and engaging them. Are you guys, what is the percentage of engaging your current audience versus reaching new people? Because I feel like there's always a hard balance. Do you spend 70% reaching new people and getting those new followers, or how do you maintain that current audience? Just percentage-wise, what do you guys think?
It's hard to say.
Yeah,
Like when you build your strategy out, is it like, because you don't want those people to feel unengaged and you're just trying to balance responding to both, I guess?
I think the majority of ours is to our current customers because they do a much better job at getting new people into our stores than we do. If you told somebody, hey, let's go to Graders, they're going to listen to you, they're not going to listen to me.
That's great. So you're just really focusing on them and then they tell more people.
I mean, my favorite comments on our posts are just them tagging somebody. Like
Yeah.
there'll just be 30 comments that are just tagging different people, so they're like, oh, look at this. Like,
So, yeah, you guys
it's like,
focus
I
really
couldn't
hard
send
on-
it to somebody, but if somebody tags you in a comment, you'll look at the post.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
great.
They do a great job.
Yeah, followers are the engine, and the commenters. I mean, one of our biggest things we always face is when we do a new city or a state expansion, like we just expanded to Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. Like, who in Pittsburgh knows anything about us? We have no
Right.
idea. But we start teasing it. We announce like a couple weeks in advance, hey, we're going to be dropping in, this week at this time, we're going to be at these bars. And that similar thing starts happening where kind of like our Cincy people go to bat for us.
Yeah.
They're like, well, first, of course, there's the comments about why Pittsburgh, we don't like them,
Yeah.
which is fair, sports. But then you get these tags, it's like, at whoever, like, tell Jamie that Ryan Geist is coming. Like, I love those because literally you're going to have bodies in bars that are brought to you by some guy in Cincinnati
That's
who just
awesome.
is so into
Yeah,
the
so
BIC
engagement
because,
is pretty important. What about you, Maria?
I don't know if there's a percentage, vice versa. Just kind of like a good collaboration of both. And I was just going to note that I love when posts have more shares than they do likes. Because that to me is like the content is like, it is more, it's like, look at this, look at this, look at this, than it is more like, oh, I like this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, does anyone else have anything else? Any other questions? No? We're good? Okay, well, before we depart, does everyone want to just share your handle on social so that we can get some love out there? You want to start, just say where you're at?
oh yeah, at Ryan Geist. That's it. Simple as that.
Yeah.
At Graders?
At Cincy Museum.
Yeah. Oh, it's on there. My bad.
No, I
I
wrote
didn't see
it
that.
on there.
Also, I should say, I failed to mention this in the beginning. Is anybody like a senior at UT? Okay, so how I ended up in Cincinnati at Ryan Geist via New York and DC is a really cool program called Venture for America. It is a 2-year post-grad entrepreneurship program that puts recent college grads at startups in revitalizing cities. We're in 17 different cities. It's a really, really cool program. If you're at that point where I was last year, where you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, take a look, even if not this year, maybe next year, but that is the program that got me to this wonderful position. So something, and I'm happy to talk about that or anything after.
Last thing I'm going to add, I'm at Yelp Cincy, and I'm also looking for a marketing intern right now, someone that can do video content. This job never becomes available. It's paid. I really would like someone that's passionate and that's here and is excited. So if you guys are interested in that kind of position, you can email me at cincy@yelp.com or just hit me up out here. But thank you so much to all of our panelists and for everyone coming today. I hope this was helpful to you. Round of applause.